Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday night. Welcome to Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, here on Sea of Tranquility. We got a very special guest here tonight. Frequent guest on Sea of Tranquility. You've seen him on the Monsters Den. You've seen him on the ranking shows. You know his writing from Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles, the Metal Asylum, and all sorts of other stuff. Welcome, Rich Catino, to the Lions Den here on Monday night. What's happening, Rich? How are you?
What's up?
Woo!
Thanks for having me. What's up, everybody?
Well, delayed reaction there. Rich is like, oh, no.
Yeah, I saw something froze up.
So tonight's topic, everybody. So this is a Chris Allo idea tonight for the topic. So it's all about bands or artists who made some really bad decisions. So this could be a terrible album that they put out following a great album. It could be a horrible tour they did, a really bad guest appearance they did, or, you know, they got rid of a singer, brought in another singer who was completely awful, or, you know, different guitar player, a lineup that didn't work. Whatever the case is, they made a mistake that we thought was a really bad mistake. Maybe it killed their career. Maybe they eventually found their way back, or maybe they just disappeared off the face of the earth after this big screw up, whatever. So I've asked everybody to pick out a couple of examples to talk about, and we're going to let our guest, Mr. Catino, start us off here tonight.
All right. So first band, bad decision, is a band that put you under the blade and said you can't stop rock and roll. And then they wanted to rock, but then they decided to cover Leader of the Pack and then do a song called Be Cruel to Your School. And it came from this album, Come Out and Play, which is a great song. I love the song Come Out and Play. But man, those two singles, bad choices for that album. Not a good move.
Well, you know what? We're most of us are from New York here, so we grew up with Twisted Sister. Some of us before they were even signed, and they used to be Leader of the Pack before they were signed. So,
I heard that. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't a new decision. It wasn't a good decision, but
yeah,
it's on the first thing they ever put out, which was the Rough Cuts demo.
Yeah.
Right.
But right. I mean, Rich is 100% right. Leader of the Pack. That band was hot in '84. And they fucking killed their career with that. So that's a great pick. I totally forgot about that one.
Too cheesy, too poppy, and Be Cruel to Your School is just awful.
That's even worse.
Awful. Talk about shit in the bed. Oh my God.
But Rich, being a horror movie guy, an amazing video with all the gore, but MTV wouldn't play it because they got zombies. Did Tom Savini do the makeup in that?
Yeah, I don't remember. I know Alice Cooper was in that song too.
Yeah. And it was really gory. It looked great, but MTV, which used to love them, they were like, "Oh, we can't play this." So total career killing.
They go.
I don't know. I liked both of those songs. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Well, you can see how it kind of killed them, and then Love Is for Suckers. Love Is for Suckers was even worse.
Yeah.
They 2 albums in a row where they shit the bed.
And they totally derailed me as being a fan in that time period. I was one of those guys that like loved Twisted Sister, saw them in all the clubs like Butch was talking about, and they let these couple albums out, and it totally took me off their track.
Like, the song Come Out and Play is great though, and The Fire Still Burns, and Kill or Be Killed, but the 2 singles were just terrible, poppy, cheesy, just not good ideas.
And they never recovered after that, right? I mean, were they ever relevant after that at all?
Because then just when they Suckers, Lovers for Suckers in that tour tank too.
Yeah, I was going to say the only recovery really was when they reunited, and that was a really big reunion for them. But that was like 2004 or something, 2003,
2000s.
20 years later.
Yeah, a long time after.
10 years later.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So, that's the first band I'm throwing under the bus.
All right.
Nice.
All right, Lynn, you're up.
All right. Well, I guess this is probably not going to come as a big surprise to anybody on here, but in 1987, Chris DeGarmo left one of my favorite bands. Or no, I'm sorry, it was 1998. He left Queensryche. So I think for me, I'm such a crazy Queensryche fan. When DeGarmo left, that really bummed me out. And I was like, I was a big dork. Like I was in the fan club and all that stuff. I used to go to all their shows. So I think the demise of him leaving started the band's kind of decline. And then I know they had creative differences with Jeff, and then they fired him in 2012. And they had this whole big thing where they had to, fight over the name and all that stuff. So for me, the decline of DeGarmo leaving Queensrÿche kind of started the end not for me, for most big fans. But yeah, that kind of sucked. So that whole breakup, I mean, I guess Todd's good, but to me, he's not Jeff Tate, and it's not really Queensrÿche, to me.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, but Queensrÿche is writing way better material now without Jeff than they did with
Oh, you stop it right
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
the
they
guy
totally
on
agree
his
with that.
Truth, though. The
He's
truth.
right.
I
I
think
agree.
Whatever.
Todd is very talented, but I
He
can't
is.
he's very talented, don't get me wrong. And I like the
He
songs
is,
they've
but I
done.
can't get past the whole Jeff Tate leaving and Chris
But
DeGarmo
to
leaving thing.
me, I mean, I don't know. It's just, to me, it sounds like when he's singing Queensrÿche, he's just trying to be Jeff Tate.
Of course.
I
agree.
know, but you
Because-
also have to bring I feel like, your own unique twist to it too. And I feel like he doesn't
Yeah.
really do enough, in my opinion.
But his voice naturally kind of sounds like Jeff Tate, though. You can't help it.
It does.
little
I
bit.
have to,
I don't know. That's my take on it. But
my take
Whatever.
on that whole mess is I started to like Queensrÿche again with the new
Yeah, so
album.
did I.
I stopped listening to them for years because to
Yeah.
me they were just putting out stuff that I wasn't interested in.
Mhm.
And the last couple albums, I mean, the last one was in my top 10 for the year.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the old Queensrÿche, the old school Chris DeGarmo, Jeff Tate, Queensrÿche.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I love that too, but
I
like
miss
this
that.
version
I
is all
miss
I'm
that.
adding. Really,
I will say that DeGarmo leaving and grunge killed Queensrÿche for all those years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Combination of the two.
Mhm.
Yep. All right, Steve, next.
I am next, and what I'm going to talk about from my first one tonight, and it could be, I didn't do this in any kind of order really. Dio had to lead Black Sabbath on the Dehumanizer tour. I'm not even talking about the first time around. I'm talking about Dehumanizer because I thought that was such a strong record. I loved it. And just
Mhm.
imagine if Black Sabbath weren't offered to do that gig in November 14th, 1992, and Ozzy was headlining Sepultura, and they wanted Black Sabbath to do the gig, and Dio's like, nope, that's it for me. And Rob Halford ended up doing the gig, 2 nights of them, and that was the end of Dio and Sabbath until the Heaven and Hell years when they reformed. But I would have loved if he would have stayed in the band and seen what they had to follow up in the next couple of years. I mean, Tony Martin came back and whatever, but
Cross Purposes is a good album.
Mhm.
it is a good album. But I would have
Yeah.
liked to seen what this lineup and if
Oh,
they had
absolutely.
stuff coming out after, you know,
It's
like
not- I agree with you. I agree with you.
more
Steve.
Sabbath with Dio albums from that time period. I would have been interested in seeing. So that was my idea. I hope I didn't steal anybody else's idea with that one.
So you're saying just at Dehumanizer, you're not saying like the next record was awful. You're saying that you just wish that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm not saying that it was a giant bad career move. I'm sure they would have sold more tickets with Dio on vocals than they did going back with Tony Martin, at least in the States, because we knew how that worked out here. And I mean, I'm saying it not on a financial thing or anything else. I'm just saying things that upset me. I would have loved to see another album follow up to the Dehumanizer album.
I agree. No, I agree.
that-
With you.
I
That
mean,
same
I like
lineup have been another one.
too, but I just think that album was a really giant, strong comeback, and I would love to see more. And that one gig totally put the ends to it. I mean, God knows if it would have worked out, but that one gig where and Ozzy reunited with the band then, but then of course they went back with Tony Martin for a couple albums after that.
And
Well-
for a couple albums, it didn't sell anything, right? And if they would have
Right.
stayed together with Dio, they would have continued on that upward trend.
The Cross Purposes didn't do horrible, but The Forbidden, of course, that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
Well, it's not even a really good album. So
No,
it's not bad.
Yeah.
But it's,
But you
The
know what?
worst.
It could have been a great Sabbath album with Dio is Strange Highways.
okay.
Strange Highways is great by itself.
that's a good
Yeah.
album too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was
Really
shortly
great.
after. It was shortly after Dehumanizer.
Yeah, 'cause that album is super heavy, just like Dehumanizer was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
album. What a great album.
Well, yeah, the claim was that some of the stuff that was on that record was originally
Strange
just going to be
Highways?
on the follow-up. Yeah, and Strange Highways.
Yeah.
Some of the lyrics and stuff was originally
They
going to be
could've.
on the next Sabbath record because Sabbath was signed for 2 records with Dio, Dehumanizer, and another record, which of course didn't happen. And actually, Steve did take my number 1 pick. And I was going to say the same exact thing, Steve. I love the Tony Martin lineup, but yeah, I would like to see more with Ronnie. And I think they were young and they could have, really done something else. And Dehumanizer is a great record for
I
sure.
got to see that.
And I think Sharon, of course, did it on fucking purpose. She was never going to reunite them. She purposely did that to fuck Tony over, 100%, no doubt about it.
Oh man, Mr. Allo,
They did reunite with Ozzy, but it was 5 years later.
On that one. But you're the Black Sabbath expert, and I got to see that tour at the Beacon Theater. Great. I mean, I still think that's one of the best albums. So.
Well, I just
For
want
sure.
to say, you mentioned Strange Highways, and there's a guitar player that no one ever talks about that I think this
Tracy
really,
G.
really cool stuff is Tracy G. So
Yep.
Tracy G on both of those records, man. The Strange Highways and Angry Machines is excellent.
Yeah,
Good album.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. Well, Chris, did you have another choice since Steve took yours?
Oh, am I up? I don't want to take anybody's. That's really funny. Yeah. All right. So my second choice then would be, it's not my favorite band because that's why I was definitely going Sabbath, but I do like them, and Van Halen. So 1996, Van Halen parts ways with Sammy Hagar. So of course, anytime that would happen, everybody would be like, "Oh shit, are they going to get back with David Lee Roth?" And sure enough, they get back with David Lee Roth, and they go in the studio and they record a couple new songs, and they show up on MTV at the MTV Video Awards and introduce some video or something, and then everybody's like, "Oh, holy shit, we're getting a Van Halen reunion," and then it doesn't happen. For whatever reason, who knows, who cares? But again, they were much younger in 1996 than they were whenever they did reunite in like 2000 something or whatever the fuck it was. And then the backlash, and with a lot of these things, there's always a backlash, or maybe not a backlash is the right word, but like even Cross Purposes, right? Cross Purposes did better as a Sabbath record, I think, because Dehumanizer did really well. So then sales came down, but it was still pretty good. Well, people I think were so pissed off, myself included, that we didn't get the David Lee Roth reunion. We get Gary Sharon, a year later. That album completely shit the bed. I don't have stats in front of me, but I'm sure that's the worst selling Van Halen record.
Chris, don't you dare insult Gary in Extreme though. Easy there.
All right, that's not my area of expertise, so I don't know much more than words, which my mom used to like when they would play it on WHB, easy listening on the terrace. So that's really not for me to say.
Hey, just don't pick on Nuno.
Yeah, well, we're not going to pick on.
Exactly. Don't pick on
Right.
Nuno.
Nope. I'm sure his grandma makes a good gravy. So, but yeah, so that's my pick, Van Halen.
All right, cool. All right, Butch, the center square. You're up next.
Well, everybody, come visit me at the butcher shop because I'm going to have a whole lot of comments because I'm going to piss some people off.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
How it should be.
Scared.
I don't even know who to go with first because all these bands I'm going to talk about really, really disappointed me, and I was a huge fan. And so, yeah, fuck it. Let's start with Def Leppard.
Oh,
So,
stop it. That was on my
Nice.
list.
well,
Nice.
You should have said it then.
Take them down.
1981, High and Dry, one of the greatest hard rock albums ever recorded. Such a high. And then Pyromania comes out, which I love. I'm not picking on Pyromania. Pyromania to me is the pinnacle of Def Leppard. It starts to go commercial. All the vocals are there. I don't care what anyone fucking says. If you tell me that that record sucks, there's something wrong with you. I don't need to hear Rock of Ages ever again. That's for sure. I don't really need to hear Foolin' again, but Foolin's a great song. Photograph's a great song, but it's the rest of that album. Phenomenal. So 83, I saw them on that tour with Gary Moore as Sydney has behind her opening up, and Crocus opening up for them. Well, Gary Moore opened up the whole thing, and then Crocus and then Def Leppard. But so for me, it's after that. It's going to Hysteria. That's where the ball was dropped. They well, listen. Obviously, it worked for them. They became a worldwide phenomenon. Everyone loved them except me. All the girls, they lost a lot of guys, but they got a lot of girls. So the girls made them famous, and they're happy, and they're going to the bank every day, and good for them. But yeah, for me, it's Def Leppard after Pyromania.
Butchie, is there a worse rock song than "Pour Some Sugar on Me"?
Oh, listen, they probably just got paid for you mentioning the name of it.
Stop it. Stop
Paid
it
for
right now,
yachts
you
and
guys.
and mansions, Nick, but it sucks.
I know.
Lynn,
I
stop
never
being a
Dance
girl.
song. It's a good dance song. That's all I'm saying.
It's a great strip club song.
I was
yeah.
gonna say,
Whatever.
even in the strip clubs, I didn't want to hear it.
Exactly.
Ah,
Exactly.
I want to hear
was
it.
getting
I
mad.
wanted to hear like "Still the Night" or something instead of that.
Lynn, stop
Anything.
being a girl.
Anything.
Oh, sorry. I'll go put my strap on for a minute and be a guy.
Whoa!
Whoa.
Oh, let the comments commence.
Oh man.
I mean, stop being a girl. I like Pour Some Sugar on Me. I'm a
Next.
girl. It is what it is.
Dear Mr. Pardo,
Tough
I was
road.
very disappointed this week.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Oh, well.
Either that or the
Oh,
ratings will
God.
go through the roof.
Yeah, strap
I don't
on.
know. You know what? You have to have thick skin in this life. So whatever. It is what it
Somebody's
is.
got potty mouth.
All right, Mr. Franco, you're up next.
All right, yeah. I'm probably gonna maybe raise some eyebrows with this one, but it's just I'm coming at it from a different angle. Everyone knows Iron Maiden is my favorite band on planet Earth. For my money, they're the greatest band ever. This shirt is relatively new for me, and I got it at Steve Keeler's store.
Yesterday.
Rock-
Woohoo!
It's a nice shirt.
Yeah, I love it. There we go, so we can see it.
Nice.
2
So
minutes.
I was thinking about Iron Maiden, and normally, I mean, people can go for the, oh, Blaze Bailey, they shouldn't have got him and all that stuff, and that's probably a more common discussion for Iron Maiden. But I was thinking how they made a run of superb albums in the 80s. And, I know like Butch and I might differ on like where their classic era stuff. I don't know, actually, Butch, you and I agree. Other people don't, they think it stopped with Power Slave, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's fair to say that Iron Maiden's albums up into and including Seventh Son were masterpieces all, right? And then
Absolutely.
No Prayer for the Dying and Fear of the Dark. There are good moments on them, but for the most part, and No Prayer for the Dying was a really dreadful step down. As I
Seventh Son, yeah. Huge.
yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah.
I was thinking about why that happened. I went back and looked at it, and I think it's a possibility that Harris felt that Steve Harris felt that maybe Adrian Smith was and Bruce together were writing better stuff than he was. Maybe they were burnt out. Maybe it was all these things, but Adrian Smith left the band during the writing or recording of No Prayer, if I got that correct. And I was just thinking maybe the mistake was that they made the album at all, No Prayer for the Dying. Maybe they should have taken a break, and maybe maybe their what do you call it, responsibilities to their record
Label.
company would not allow this to happen. But maybe they should have just walked away for a little while. Just said, listen, we're not in a good place creatively. Let's take some time. And maybe they could have gone and, Bruce could have still done some solo stuff and Adrian could have done that as well. But maybe they could have waited a few years. I think their mistake was that they tried to keep the train running, which I know every band does. It's the way they make their living. But just looking back at it, I wonder if Iron Maiden would have just put it on ice for a few years, just to step away and refresh. Maybe they never would have made No Prayer for the Dying. They never, and maybe they would have had some good songs from those eras that they would have put together on some, I realize this is a hypothetical, but I think they should have taken more time. That's my feeling. I think they righted the ship. I love what Iron Maiden has done since they got Bruce back the second time. But I really think they should have just taken some time away instead of forcing out stuff that really didn't live up to their legacy. What do you guys think?
I agree with what you're saying there. The only thing to think about is if they taken a break, which would have probably been for a couple of years with the way Maiden's cycles ran back then, grunge came.
Yeah.
And grunge, it would have been, I mean, they were still Iron Maiden, they were huge, but they still would have had a mountain to climb to come through, unless they did like Priest did and got Pantera heavy and kind of cut through, because anything that was kind of like in the middle-ish of heavy kind of got, pushed away. So I wonder, that's a great
I agree.
thought.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good hypothetical, yeah.
Yeah, just wonder how things would have went, if they would have. Because I just read Adrian Smith's book and a couple interviews with him where he started reminiscing about that time, and it just sounded like he needed time away from them, from the whole thing. But you're right, maybe they would have lost too much momentum. The early '90s was a tough time for
everybody.
In fact,
everybody.
All the lists that I made, like a lot of the bands that I thought about with this, either grunge or nu metal was always for me the thing that I kept coming back to. So but
you bring up an interesting point though, because how many times have we heard this whole, one of the important members of an important band needed a break, and the rest of the band didn't want to give him that break, and they continued on without him. I mean, Priest comes to mind, Dream Theater comes to mind. I'm sure there's a whole lot more we can throw out there.
Yeah.
And, you got to wonder, is a year, to Butch's point, maybe a year would have been too long.
Right.
Maybe a year is just enough to everybody recharge their batteries, come back fresh. But
I didn't know grunge was going to happen. I mean, the world moves on without you, but yeah, it's
especially
a hypothetical point.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it's a great picnic. That was actually on my list too. And to your point of keeping the train running, I agree 100%. I mean, Adrian Smith was absolutely the decline of Maiden, but they kept the train running, and then they lost Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
So-
Wait a
minute, they had a
back
Janet
up.
Gers.
Wait a minute. Adrian.
Yeah,
Smith?
the ballet dancer. Yeah, they added him. He's still
No, I
there.
think he means that
He's getting a
Adrian
paycheck
leaving.
for some reason.
Oh, wait, hold. Yeah, Chris, you mean Adrian leaving?
Yes, was the decline.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
meant. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not that
That-
Adrian-
yeah,
Fourth
Yeah,
choice award.
I was ready to go. I was ready to go.
no, yeah.
He's going to hop through the screen and kill you.
Drop the gloves, eh?
Oh God.
You'd have gone psych
Yeah.
right through the screen.
The early '90s for metal were tough unless you were in a death metal band, and that's like the birth of death metal was starting. Then
Yeah.
regular metal and everything else was.
Ask
Yeah.
Pantera how the 90s were.
I was just gonna say, Pantera's the only one that really
Few and far
thrived.
between.
Everybody else, yeah.
Yeah, few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right,
just
right.
go back-
And the reunions, the Kiss reunion did great. The Sabbath reunion did great. The Maiden reunion did great in '99, but it was,
like,
most of the decade. Yeah, it was. I got a buddy that calls it the Great Metal Famine.
Yeah.
it just went underground like the 80s. I mean, there was a lot of great stuff.
Underground, yeah.
You
Yeah, underground.
had to go find
There was a
it.
lot of good music coming out of the European countries, though.
Yes.
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Sugar.
Blind Guardian, Halloween was still
Gamma
Halloween.
Ray, Stradivarius.
No, Halloween. Yeah, Halloween actually did very well.
Right, Tranquility.
Mhm.
Blind Guardian and all that stuff.
Blind Guardian.
Children
All
of
those
Bodom
weird
came
bands
later in
that
the
Nick
decade.
and Line. Yeah, there was some good.
Emperor, Dissection.
That's a different world, though, Steve. All the
Yeah. Well, like I said, the mighty was sugar.
It was out of the mainstream, yeah. But,
Yeah.
all right, Mr. Scow, you're up.
All right, so I'm going to go with my most contentious pick first, just to ruffle some feathers here.
Ooh.
So this, it's like a twofer. It's the same situation happened for two bands, and neither band sucked afterwards. But this is just a selfish thing. This is purely my point of view, and I'm going with Ronnie James Dio again. We're going back further in time when he left Sabbath and when he left Rainbow. So Down to Earth with Graham Bonnet is still a great album. Born Again with fucking Ian Gillan, obviously a great album. But for my money, the earlier albums before that, when he sang on this little gem that some of you guys might have heard of, I know Butch kind of likes it. And Chris, I know you've heard this album a couple times.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit.
That's just some of the greatest metal of ever put the tape in history. And I know the situation. He had different opinions with Richie and the whole live building with Sabbath with the recording of that. And, they came to loggerheads with him and Tony. And he was out of the bands, and but Born Again especially is a fucking great album, But just if those guys had managed to kind of like patch that over and maybe do one more album, because I thought that the albums that he left on was some of the best stuff they ever did, like best stuff Sabbath ever did, and some of the best stuff Rainbow ever did, So I know it wasn't destined to be forever, and I know Rainbow, obviously Joe Lynn Turner was great, Grant Bonnet was great, Tony Martin was great, Glenn Hughes, all these other singers they had were great. But none of them were as good as Ronnie James Dio for me. None of them were as good as that guy. And those albums that they did with Dio were just so fucking good that if I would have loved to hear that, just one more album from each band with them would have been, in hindsight, would have been pretty cool. Obviously, years later, we got the Humanizer, which is, like you said, amazing. And even the Heaven and Hell album is really good. But and Rainbow, I don't even know what the hell they're doing today. So I don't even care about that. But yeah, just one more album with Dio would have been really cool. So I always thought that, maybe Bad Decisions it's kind of like more of in hindsight, it would have been cool to hear something else from them. But I'm going with Ronnie leaving Sabbath and Rainbow.
Well, it is, Ryan. It's like just like in any relationship, when the communication stops, the relationship's done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I know
Ronnie and and Geezer were not talking. Ronnie was not talking to Richie. I mean, it's just like once that seeps in, that's it, done.
And I know it's not Ronnie's band. He was the new guy, so obviously being the vocalist, he should have had more say over the vocal, his own performance, on the live album. But it's just one of those things, where the communication breaks down. They weren't talking, and it wasn't like a really friendly way he left in both situations. It was kind of a little acrimonious. So the fact that he did come back to Sabbath years later was great. Wasn't as good as Mob Rules or Heaven and Hell, but the Humanizer still a fucking awesome album. So and hypothetically, if you go back in time and smack all of them around a little bit, like just go talk to each other, just sit down here, patch it over and record something else that's killer, and then go about your day. So
cool.
Well, look how big Holy Diver was. So if you translated that to
you didn't read
part of that record in the next record, I mean, that could have been huge.
Hey, excuse me. I had my hand raised. He just rushes in and just says what I was going to say. That's not right. Come on, Chris.
Oh, it sucks somebody saying your thing first, doesn't
Raise
it?
your hand.
And obviously,
quit being a boy, Butch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Butch.
Good comeback.
Ryan, you got it covered. I got the Dio left the second time. You got the first time. You could have done either one, and that was both in my head. But
well,
we got full coverage.
I want to tell Ryan something. Well, two things. My thing was just going to be about the Holy Diver thing. If those two things hadn't happened, you would have never got Holy Diver. So I'm with you. Mob Rules is my favorite. Right? How I feel about Rising, but Holy Diver, man. It's right there with those two.
It doesn't happen till we ever get Vivian, right?
Exactly.
I just actually thought of it. If you never left Rainbow, because the difference is with Richie, you never would have joined Sabbath. You never would have had Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules.
Exactly.
It's like the butterfly effect. You change one thing, and then everything down the road changes.
But I will tell you this though. I met Ronnie in 1994 on the Strange Highways tour, and I saw him. I had never met him before. I saw him outside and I said hi, and I didn't want to bother him. I just said, I said, hi, Mr. D. I just want to say thanks a lot for Rainbow Rising. And I was going about my way. And he stopped me and he was signing the autograph. And he said, hang on one second. I have a question for you. So I stopped and he signed an autograph and he looked at me and asked me point blank, he's like, why do you like Rainbow Rising? Everyone tells me Rainbow Rising is their favorite. Why do you like it? And, my instant my instant comeback was Cozy Powell. And then,
no. It's Cozy fucking pal.
Exactly. But I didn't swear to Mr. Dio. But in my long story short is that he told me that night that he had been talking to Cozy and they had been talking to Richie and they were talking about doing a Rainbow reunion in '94. But he said that said flat out, he said him and Blackmore had been talking and everything was good, but he said he would not do it without Cozy. And then Cozy died a few years later, obviously, and that was the end of that. But
a reunion that never happened.
Yeah.
That's
You don't
sad.
swear to Mr. Dio.
No.
Don't ever swear to Ronnie.
If Woody would have went straight to the police, this would have never happened.
All right, so I went totally wacky on my first pick here. You guys are gonna laugh at this. All right, I'm sure everybody on this here today probably has either never heard this or hasn't thought about this album in like a million years. I'm going to show you the picture of it first because I don't own it, of course.
The hell is it?
Who is that?
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Greg Allman and Cher.
Oh my God.
What is that?
What the hell is that?
Allman
Where'd you
and
find
Woman, Greg Allman and Cher. The
Wow.
album they did
God.
together,
Holy cow.
1977, called
Oh my God.
The Hard Way. So
I was 8 years
You
old.
can't
I can't wait to rewatch this and just look at all of our
Wow.
faces as we're trying to like. remember.
I'm not sure I ever heard that record even.
I know where he's going with this.
Until this very
one
minute.
of the biggest bombs of if they made a movie out of this would have been the biggest bomb of all time. Basically, so for those of you who do or don't know, Greg Allman and Cher met like in 1975. They wound up dating. They wound up getting married. It was a ridiculously tumultuous marriage because, of course, Greg Allman was a complete mess at this time. His brother died in the Allman Brothers band. The whole band was into coke, and it's just a big, big mess. And then he hooks up with Cher. The Allmans are kind of in shambles, but he decides, instead of paying attention to his band, let me do an album with my wife. And of course, Cher's music and Greg Allman's music, nothing alike. So they do this album. And of course, that bad Photoshop, album cover is just as bad as the music. But, the funny thing is you listen to the album and the music is not awful. It's probably better than what the critics and the fans bashed it about, all those years ago. But it's like, come on. You couldn't have done a worse thing for your career and your marriage, because quite frankly, within a year, they were divorced. So the album completely flopped. Nobody bought it. Everybody totally shit on it. Then they decided to go out and do like a little tour, which no one went to see. That was a complete disaster. They didn't even finish the tour. And then before you know it, they're broken up. And Allman is like in such sad shape that he can't even get his band back together. The Allmans kind of like sputter along for a couple of years, releasing a couple of really bad albums as, cocaine is rampant throughout the whole band, and basically almost killed his entire career. This whole debacle here. And I'm sure that Cher probably doesn't even, they had a kid together, but I'm sure she doesn't talk very highly about her time with Greg Allman, as great as he was. And I love Greg Allman to death, but this was not a good time in his life. Probably not the person he should have married, but then again, probably it's one thing if you marry this person, but to do an album with her, not a good idea. So I urge everybody to go on and listen to this album on YouTube. It's an interesting listen, to say the least.
The cover looked like a Streisand Christopherson album cover.
Yes, yes.
It totally did. It totally did.
And they do not believe in life after love.
I'm no angel.
Hey, I like that song.
I love that song. That wasn't on that album, though.
No, do you believe in life after love?
Oh, come on.
That's not the song. I'm singing the Greg Allman.
Sorry, I like it. Okay.
Steve likes that song. It's been said.
I believe in life after love, so stop it.
I don't believe in life or love.
I knew you were going to say that.
Alrighty.
Well, you came out of nowhere with that one, Pete.
There you go. I had to come up with a really wacky one tonight. So
Nice.
That was wacky.
all right, Sydney, what do you got?
Yay, see, our anchor.
Yeah, so before I start my pick, I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you guys remember, about a couple weeks ago, when I did my top favorite vocalists, I made this whole big thing about inviting Jolyn Turner on my podcast, and somehow it happened. So if you like Jolyn Turner, and I saw some comments regarding him when I picked him, so you can search Metal from the Inside, Jolyn Turner, and watch the interview. But I wanted to do a little shameless plug for that because I'm super proud of it. But
And she did a great job. Everybody make sure you watch
awesome.
it.
Woo!
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. And if you do like Joe and everything that he's done, I definitely recommend watching it. But into my pick, I'm picking something that's happened in the last year that really pissed me off, very, very much so. And that was Motley Crue deciding to come out of retirement and do this next tour. They did this farewell, and this is what gets me, because this was different than any really farewell tour that, we've seen Ozzy, we've seen Kiss, we've seen all these people who've done farewell tours and have come out of farewell tours and whatever. But what really pisses me off about this is that they made such a big deal. They signed contracts, they made tombstones, they had we're never touring again. We're never going to be like the band that tours and does a farewell tour, and we're going to come out of it. And, no, we're done. Motley Crue's never coming back, never coming back, ever, ever, ever. Mick Mars on the last tour could barely freaking stand and play. Love Mick Mars, but he could barely stand and play anything. And I saw him twice on that farewell tour. It was good. They did the Staples Center show. It was like perfect bang, to the end of Motley Crue. We're going out on a high note, whatever. And then they come out with this BS about a year ago, which who knows one day if this tour will ever even happen, because it didn't get to happen because of COVID.
Yeah.
Really just aggravated me, because I felt like it was such just a disservice to the fans who they milked all of this money for wanting to see them on their last time. And, how many people probably flew to LA and, wanted to see this, this is the last Motley Crue show ever. Now I have a freaking poster that I bought that now is like totally worthless. So this just gets me so fired up, because I know for a fact that it was strictly for just the money. And that's what really burns me, because it's, of course it comes down to money, but this was solely just for money. So it really gets me annoyed. I wish they would have just ended, because everything that they do now, I love Motley Crue, but Vince Neil doesn't sound great. Mick Mars can barely play. It's just could have.
Well, Vince needed some money so he can afford to go to the buffet next week. So
right.
It's
so aggravating. It's so aggravating. Just end. That's what's really, as we see these bands get older, and especially like as much as me being young, I want to see these bands. Of course, I didn't get to see Motley Crue in '83 or whatever. But you also have to pick a point where you have to stop. And I think a lot of the points now with a lot of these bands who, you're not putting on a show that is gonna, that is paying tribute to, your early days and where you've come as a career. It's just, we all hate each other. We couldn't stand each other. We're all gonna come out and play this show that's just not great and do it strictly just so we can, get a couple million dollars.
It's not genuine, right? It's not genuine.
No, and it's not. And that's what really disappointed me as a fan, because I personally loved Motley Crue, was one of those bands that when I was really getting into 80s metal, I really loved. And I still love Motley Crue. I'm not like, don't not like them anymore or dislike them, but it really disappointed me as a fan, because, they just really, it was just a genuine disservice. So really, I could go on and on about this. It's but
you're right though. Mick Mars couldn't stand on that tour. Mick Mars, he really I thought he was going to keel over at one point.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I saw several shows, but I will always go see them because of Nikki, and Butch knows it. Everybody, I am a Nikki fan. I'm a Motley Crue fan. I love Crue, so I don't care if they play till they're 90, as long as
I've unfortunately given them enough money. They will not get another cent out of me.
Oh, I'm not paying, but I'm going.
They will never. I will only go to see Def Leppard, maybe, if that.
Steve's got a question or comment. Steve.
Yes.
My comment was that your man Alice Cooper, I thought he chopped their heads off so they could never come back. Didn't he? The final night, there was supposed to be a big thing where he went out and did the guillotine with Motley Crue.
If you didn't, and that's the thing, it's like, wasn't even like it was 15 years later, and they were like, oh, we miss playing, we want to get back together. It was like 3 years. It was like 3 years. You made the biggest deal out of it, and it was 3 years. I don't know. It's just so damn annoying.
You know what the answer is?
I'm not as
You know why Motley Crue reunited? I know, and I know Pete knows the answer. This is the KISS answer. We reunited for the fans. That's their answer, of course.
Yeah,
but,
and that's the thing. They're saying, oh, all these new fans came from the dirt. I'm sorry, I'm in the age group that they're talking about, and I don't know one other person my age that I really know that's like, oh my God, I saw the dirt and I love Motley Crue.
That's
like
what I was
literally nobody.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
in
it was trending at that time. That's why.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
was
only
saying
reason why,
that movie have anything to
Because
do
it
with
was trending.
right.
Yeah,
That's what-
Yeah.
everyone's pretty much forgotten about it already. So
Yeah.
I didn't even see it.
Butch.
This is the thing, though, Sydney. Think about, you're talking. I mean, obviously they did it because Live Nation opened up the bank book and gave them a check that said, put as many zeros as you want here, and we'll sign it. But think about the opposite side of that. How much money did they make for the farewell? People came out and I mean, I didn't, because I could give a shit. I stopped liking
a ton of people made. They made a ton of money.
That's what I'm saying. The point is that farewell tour. Everyone, we got to go spend all this money to go see him because Motley Crue is going away. This is their farewell.
Well, that's exactly why they did it. They did it for the money, but that just makes them. That's the reason I don't like them. I don't like the fact that they did it, because you made a shitload of money, and it's like, haven't
Well,
you been enough? Like, can you stop?
Well, my point is that they just did it twice. They did it as a farewell, and then they came back because they gave them a shit ton of money. So
It was just,
obviously
it was all the synopsis is that it was just really all a publicity thing, and it really sucks luckily for me, I saw them when they came, around town, but I feel bad for people who dropped, $1,000 or whatever, and they went to that last show, thinking that it'd be the last Motley Crue show, and 3 years later.
The matter is, a lot of people would go see the tour.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going
if it would have happened,
yeah.
a lot of people.
I'm sure that there's going to be comments saying, people will go see them, whatever. But for me, I just felt like it was a real disservice and a disappointment as a fan. So that's my number 3. So
Live Nation gives me a check with a lot of zeros. I'm coming back.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right, back down to Mr. Catino.
All right, well, I could make the same case I was going to say for Kiss too, similar to what Sydney said too. So I'm gonna pass over that one, but same thing with Kiss and the Imposters. Somebody in Ace and Peter's costume. So it's a joke. I think they're just setting it up for when Paul and Gene retire, so that they could put somebody else in their costumes and they'll keep selling it. So just gonna throw that in there. So I'm gonna pick somebody else instead. So I'm gonna go with a guitar player from the 80s, from a really big band at the time. He had great riffs, great tone, great melodies.
Be careful.
Is he on a milk carton?
Great tone. He had killer looking guitars. His melodies were great and everything. But I think in the 90s and forward, he got involved in too many things, too many bands, too many projects, too many things going on. And he totally lost where he came from. So that guy is him.
Totally disagree.
Really?
Yep.
Who is it?
Okay.
Totally disagree.
I understand the whole concept of, doing different things, different projects, trying different music styles, the whole thing. But the guy that was playing at this point and the first 2 Lynch Mob
Is that
albums.
George Lynch?
Yeah.
Oh.
But after the first 2 Lynch Mob albums, all of a sudden he totally lost his roots where he came from. You can hear that when he did the reunion with Dokken in 2016.
Oh yeah.
It's like he doesn't even remember how to play what he played on the Dokken albums.
It's so mellow. I don't know.
Yeah.
He plays the songs and it's like one of my favorite songs of all time is The Hunter, and he plays it and I'm like, this doesn't sound like The Hunter.
He changes too many things. He changes the solos. He does too much improving. It's like he forgot where he came from. I think it's cool you do different projects, different bands, different styles. It's great. But when it's time to do where you came from, that metal thing that he did with that sound and everything, with the cool guitars and the melodies and the harmonies and all the different stuff that he did with his music, he lost it. I think he just got too far away from it. Too many hands in the pot, too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's not the same for me.
Just go ahead, Butch. Whenever you're
I know.
What did I do? What did I do wrong, Butch? Wait, I want to see what you're going to say.
But just dropping the mitts.
Is he out of the room? I can't see.
I will say this. He made a humongous mistake with the Lynch Mob Smoke This record when he tried to do the rap metal thing. And that's actually, in hindsight now, is not as bad as I thought it was when it came out. It's not my go-to, but I gotta tell you, Lynch has been one of the most, honestly, I might say he might be the most consistent metal guitar player of the 80s to today. From the KXM stuff, the Ultraphonics, I mean, you hear 3 notes he does, it's George Lynch. That to me is the big thing. But Dokken was over in 88, really. So the stuff that he did, the first 2 Lynch Mob records are phenomenal. But then, like we've already talked about, 90s came, and here comes grunge, which is why he tried to reinvent himself to try to be relevant. I didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it. But then he got back, when he got Lynch Mob back together, and he's done 5 or 6 Lynch Mob records, which are phenomenal.
Which are pretty good. Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, but I'm saying when he does all these other projects and things, and he goes back to play the Dokken songs, it's like he doesn't even remember how he played it. It's like it's not even the same solo.
The difference is that he's trying to I mean, Loudness did the same thing. Everyone knows I love Akira Takusa.
Akira.
Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would like to know, it's the same thing, I like a lot of the stuff that George Lynch has done recently. Like I mentioned Dirty Shirley, like he's done some stuff in the past couple years that I really, really enjoy.
Sweet Lynch is great too.
I just think that kind of what you're saying, Rich, it's like he plays the Dawkins songs differently than he did with like a different, I don't know, like I go back to, yeah, it's like really mellow. Like when you watch him do it, to me, it feels like when he does a lot of the older Dawkins songs now, it's like the distortion isn't as heavy. It's more like kind of like a clean kind of sound more than it ever was. And I mean, he's still great. I love George Lynch. He's one of my favorite guitar players of all time. I love everything that he does, but it's just different than what how he used to play those songs in the 80s.
I think it's too much going on at once, and I think he just forgets what he plays, and he improvs too much now.
He does well. I don't think he forgets. I don't think that's it at all. I think he's bored with playing the same songs for 40 years, for one. And the other thing is he is George Lynch, so he can improvise, and he does kind of noodle around and do things a little different. But I will say, I don't know, Sydney, the last time you saw him, but I know there was maybe 6-7 years ago, there was a period where he was detuning, playing stuff very differently, like halfway through the song, you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah,
he went through that period, and he got through that, and he came back around where he's playing everything almost note for note. But
I saw him at M3 back in 2018. And he did sound, it's because I'm mostly thinking, when you look back on videos of like even like the documentary and a little bit before then, that's when he kind of like had this, it's a lot of like cleaner stuff, like a lot of different, but I did see him at M3, and he played like, they played like It's Not Love and other things, and Wicked Sensation, all this stuff, and I did really enjoy it. Kind of like you kind of mentioned, he kind of came back a little bit to playing, I guess, same kind of tone and everything. But
he's definitely one of the guitar players that is not the guy that's going to play you the same solo he played in 1984. He's not that. He's never been that guy. You listen to live stuff, even from back then. He does like the things that you can hum, and then he goes off and improvises and beats George Lynch for a while, and then comes back. So he's kind of always done that. But I mean, it's your pick. You can say what you want, but it's George fucking Lynch.
I will say, I'll just add a little bit here. I've always thought he's a tremendous player, and he still is, obviously. My only issue with George Lynch is he's doing way too much. It's like every time I turn around, he's doing a different project. And I got to say, half of them, I really don't care for much.
Right.
Really.
And a lot of stuff becomes mediocre, I think, too, for me.
It's almost too busy. It's like he's too busy. I don't know. But some of it is really good.
He's got a lot
like
of
the Sweet Lynch thing that he did with Michael Sweet's great, those two albums.
I'll take the KXM records over those. Those three KXM records, KXM with Doug Pennick and Ray Luzier, man.
Yeah.
Woof. Especially going into it thinking that they enter a studio with no songs, write a whole record in a week, record the basic tracks in a week, and then do the vocals later. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Lynn.
If he didn't lose, before I go, if he didn't lose where, like I said, he came from so much, and he still did the other stuff, it wouldn't be so bothersome. But since he doesn't do that when you see him live, and even when they, like I said, when they did the Docker reunion, it's disappointing.
All right, Miss Lynn, you're up.
Okay, so since Butch stole my Def Leppard thing, I'm just going to piggyback off of that, because mine wasn't so much that, I mean, after Pyromania, they kind of went downhill, but there was a reason for that, I feel like, because Pete Willis, who was a co-founding member of the band, right, got replaced by Phil Collin. And I think that kind of sucked, because Pete Willis is the one that brought Joe Elliott into the band. And their manager at the time, Pete Mensch, was like, oh, hey, I'm not gonna fire the guy. You fire the guy.
Google.
And it kind of was like, really? You're the manager. You're not gonna fire him? So he made Joe Elliott fire him over a freaking phone call, which I thought is kind of messed up. And then they got Phil Collin, which, whatever. Like, I never really liked the guy, but so that the demise of Def Leppard, I feel like, was because of that. To piggyback off what Butch was saying earlier.
That and being the biggest band in the world in 1983.
Again, On Through the Night and High and Dry are my two favorite fucking albums, I mean, to date, but again, I feel like there was a lot of that to do with it, and all right, so Pete Willis was a little messed up and he was a little drunk at the time. What rock star isn't? Send him to rehab, get him some help, and bring him back, and they didn't choose to do that. It sucked.
They did not.
So
the rest is history, as we say.
Again, they're on the way to the bank right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and I'm sitting in my room. So,
All right, Steve, back to you.
Hey, I'm back. All right, so Pete was talking about a weird connection with Cher and Greg Allman. I'm going to talk about a weird connection that happened with a band that I love from the 60s, The Doors. Someone had a great idea in April of 2003, or around 2003, for Ian Astbury to go on the road as the singer of The Doors. And I'm sure he's a big Doors fan. I know, a big Morrison fan, but it was just a mess. I thought it was. I mean, I talked to some people that did attend. They enjoyed the shows, but I just thought it was horrendous. Having someone going out and playing Jim Morrison, it was like a cover band, and I mean, they had all kinds of lawsuits brought about them from Densmore, who didn't join up. They had Stuart Copeland from the Police playing drums. But they had tons of lawsuits. They were sued by Morrison's parents. They were sued by members of the Doors, and I think it was just it was a disaster.
I didn't even know what happened.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that at all.
I didn't even know what happened.
No.
That was a
It
thing.
was in 2003, 2004. They went on the road, and then they had to change their name to the Doors of the 21st Century, and they were still getting sued for using the Doors logo. And it was a violation of the agreement because they made an agreement that they can only play with the original members, as Motley Crue probably did but forgot about. And but that was mine. I don't have a lot of information on it, but I just remember you guys were talking about bad directions and weird stuff going on, and I think that was one of the weirdest things. It was almost like, hey, I can remember when that happened, and like people are like, the Doors are going on tour. I'm like, how? Did they find Jim Morrison? And maybe he was on a milk carton like Sykes for a while, and they found him. But, look, I get the finger from Butch. I know I'm doing all right now. But, yeah, Chris knows all about that. He's a big fan, cult fan also.
Yeah, I saw that tour. I saw Ian Astbury with the Doors before there was the Doors of the 21st Century. It was just the Doors. I saw it at the Roseland in New York City, and I enjoyed it. I'm only a moderate Doors fan, but I'm a big cult fan. So I wasn't offended. But if I was a huge Doors fan, yeah, maybe I would have, been bothered by it. So I totally see your point.
Yeah, I saw.
Although I like Asbury.
Jones Beach, and I think it was what was the Sounds of the '60s. I think that tour was called or something like that. They had them and like I don't know, the Lovin' Spoonful of the Vanilla Fudge or someone. I don't know. There was a couple of bands on that tour, and I remember thinking, I'm like, all right, they actually sound pretty good because he sounds like Jim Morrison. But then I'm thinking like, well, if they weren't going to replace Jim back after Jim died, they're going to wait 50 years later to resurrect this thing with a guy that sounds like Morrison, who we all love, Ian Astbury, right? I'm like what's the driving factor behind this? Obviously a little bit of cash, right?
Yeah.
And people went to see that tour. I mean, the fans were in the seats. So, but yeah, not a decision.
I'm not saying it's a finance. It wasn't I'm not talking financial. That's stuff in my brain.
No. Yeah.
My opinion, just like Ryan and Chris were talking about stuff before.
Yeah. But a bad decision, absolutely. Yeah, it should have never happened, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe Hendrix will be back next summer.
Yeah, you never know.
Hey, they've done a bunch of Hendrix tours.
I think they do that hologram stuff.
No.
Well, but there's a tour that goes around like in the fall. It's like I can't remember what it's called, but
they get homage to Hendrix, but it's not advertising.
Right?
Billy Cox is in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cover
Wild, and it's been a whole bunch of household name guitar players involved, and they've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little different than some
Yeah,
other
yeah.
I know about that one too.
Yeah.
That's a good choice, Steve. All right, Chris, back to you.
All right. 2008, one of the greatest bands of all time. One of my all-time favorite bands, Judas Priest, puts out a fucking abomination of a record called Nostradamus. And it's fucking awful. I still love Judas Priest. I still saw them 5 times on the Nostradamus tour, but it's a terrible record. It's a double record that makes it twice as bad as any other record. That's part of the mistake. The bigger mistake was that guitarist KK Downing was the main driving force behind that record and really loved that record and felt he put his heart and soul into it, even though it's a fucking terrible record. And I guess the treatment of the record, and more so, he detailed out in his book, Priest management wanted him to do another EP shortly afterwards, and he felt his treatment in the band, that was the last straw. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. So he decided to quit Priest because he's like, hey, I just wrote you, a 90-minute double record, even though it's terrible. But because of that, he leaves. And of course, within a few years, we lose Glenn Tipton because he's sick. So we went from, 40 years with both original Priest guitar players to now nobody, no original guitar players. So I think my mistake with the whole Nostradamus record, because maybe if they wouldn't have done that, maybe KK Downing wouldn't have got pissed off, and maybe he'd still be in Priest. And hey, maybe then we'd have Richie Faulkner and KK Downing, and I'd be totally okay with that.
Firepower.
Right.
Chris, I still remember.
Firepower's a great record.
Chris, I remember I was at Irving Plaza to see At the Gates, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. I saw you, and you came over, and you're like, have you heard the new Judas Priest album? It fucking sucks. I don't think I've ever seen you as fired up as you were in that moment. I was already like 5 years in. I remember, and that was like 2008. That was like 15 years ago. Like it happened yesterday. I remember how you were just like livid over that. Like it's.
I'll never forget it. To do the Priest interview, they made me go into the city and sit in a room at Sony Records and play me the album. And I was like, oh my, I can't believe what I'm listening to. And like the publicity guy came in after the first disc, he's like, it's great, right? I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, let me put on disc 2. And I'm like, oh God, it's got to be better. Of course, disc 2 is worse than the first one. So yeah, but then learning that record helped kill KK's career in Priest, which of course he now, if you read the book, he now totally regrets, and now they don't want him back. Just a whole debacle of a record, which is a shame.
So of course now the 20 people in the universe who actually think that's Priest's greatest album of all time, and now all sorts of hate for you, Chris.
That's okay. Leave it in the comments. I mean, and there's that guy who won or is in the Guinness Book of World Records because he listened to Nostradamus like every day for like 600 days or something like that. I'm like, are you insane? Like I couldn't get through the album twice, and he listened to this every day for like 2 years. It's nuts. But
you can get in the Guinness Book for listening to music, because I think I listened to Operation Mindcrime for like fucking 5,000 days.
Call him up.
I mean, I don't know details, but he's in there. So yeah.
Nice.
And you still don't know that all the songs on that record.
Yes, I do. I do. I just can't tell you, certain details because.
Yeah.
All right, Butch.
You know what? Because I have a bad memory. Stop it. I'm old.
Hey, it's my turn.
Some ginkgo biloba.
Is that still going to work? Is that ginkgo biloba?
I don't know. I'm going to try and sue myself. I'll let you know.
Is that one of my bands from Finland, Ginkgo Biloba?
Oh, I can pronounce it.
You can read the logo.
Yes.
Well, I had planned on this band anyway, so piggybacking off of Chris, but in a different era. So for me, let me even back up a little bit. So Nostradamus, yeah, I remember when I heard that they were doing a record called Nostradamus, I was like, who the fuck wants to hear a record about Nostradamus? First of all, I've never heard the whole thing, and I don't own it. So I just knew that it had to be bad. And that goes along with this next album in the same band. So it's Judas Priest. In 1986, the awful record that I will never, ever fucking own, Turbo.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry. I don't care what anyone says. Turbo fucking sucks. Out the Cold is a great song. Out the Cold is awesome. I love that song.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we're good.
Stop.
So that means the whole album doesn't suck.
Very close.
That's their best ballad, I think.
98% of it then. but that record's awful. And I did actually go to see them on that tour because going back to George Lynch, Dokken was opening up, and I had to see George Lynch in '86. But I don't understand it. If you've read it or heard, I mean, I listened to Rob Halford's book. I'm too lazy to read, so I do the audio books. And he talked about, you know, needing a change, all these things that he came up with in his book that sound politically correct. That record fucking sucks. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. And then on top of that, then the next record is almost worse than Turbo. Ram It Down is equally awful.
Hard as
That's
Iron
the one.
and title track.
Three
Very
for
Yeah,
good.
Ram It Down, the song is awesome.
Well, see,
Yeah,
that's the
Ram It Down's a
difference.
great song.
That's the difference. Ram It Down has got like 3 songs on it that are good.
Yeah,
So
I'll give you that.
Turbo's really bad.
yeah, the cover's terrible. We
Yeah,
know that.
it's Johnny Be Good. Really?
Oh,
Who
Hey,
signed off on Johnny Be
I was
Good?
just gonna say that
The
one.
Johnny
but-
Be Good.
It's terrible. That's worse than
I
anything on
got-
Nostradamus. That cover is worse than anything. Trash.
I
So
gotta
that's my
say,
my second pick is Priest.
He
I
still
gotta say
plays
that
Turbo to this day too.
aside from maybe 2 songs, maybe 3, it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me.
You know
There are a
what?
lot of people that say the same thing. They like that album a lot. I actually don't
I like it.
too much.
It
I
made
think,
me,
what is it? Rock You Around the World and Wild Crazy Nights is the other one. Those are shit.
It
Um,
was Priest trying to go here.
maybe one other, Private Property. I think those are the only 3 I skipped. I think everything else I like.
my God, Private Property.
Oh,
I like that song.
That's a shitter, definitely.
well, they were going. They were looking to go.
Oh,
here.
wait.
That's what the maneuver was.
Wait, the song
Hands
that's
off.
better is
It's
Parental
a
Guidance.
friend.
Parental Guidance.
I remember that one now.
I like those songs. Stop it.
Oh boy.
And there you have it.
There you have it.
Lynn's stamp of approval.
This is
Don't
what you
buy
guys need. I don't know. I gotta bring it brightness down here.
Anyhow.
I saw it. It was
I say no. The worst of Judas Priest. I need
Oh
that
my God.
Every
Really?
song
That's
is
off.
closure.
Oh my God, what's on that?
Oh,
Is it
well,
all in
I'll
Turbo?
tell you, but it's Don't Go, I'm a Rocker, Prisoner of Your Eyes, You Say Yes, United sucks.
United.
Johnny Be Good, Red,
I
White, and
like
Blue,
United.
Troubleshooter. It goes on.
Why do people hate Point of Entry? Point of Entry is such a great fucking Priest record.
And
It
I
is.
like
As they're
United.
playing fucking rules. Solar
You
Angel.
like them all, Lynn. Lynn likes them all.
Fuck it.
fuck it.
Whatever.
All right, Mr. Franco, you're up.
Fuck it. Oh, okay. So I got to go back to one of the guys I mentioned on the show a lot, Devin Townsend from Canada, and how like the first thing, I think the first band of his own that he really came into prominence with that was Strapping Young Lad, and I got this. Hold on. I got this when I was 18. I have it on vinyl now. Heavy is a really heavy thing. It was a hell of a premiere album. It's one of the wackiest, craziest, zaniest listens you'll have, right? Off the wall, all kinds of funny samples, him talking as a little baby, and then it burst into the song. Loved it. It was insane. And that was followed up with one of the greatest heavy metal albums of I mean, it's up there. I would put this in my top something or other. City.
I'll
The
see.
Finola. Yeah, I mean, just it was much more focused, but still unhinged and crazy. And his voice was all over the place. He was doing the high pitched stuff. He was doing the death metal stuff. It was phenomenal.
Gene Hoglan is a fucking beast on that
Gene
album.
Hoglan, exactly. And Strappy and so right around that time, Devin was doing his own solo career, and he made Ocean Machine and Infinity and like these great albums. And but you could tell that his heart wasn't in really heavy, extreme, harsh metal anymore. It was going more toward the prog stuff and all the great stuff that he's done. But whether it was because he's a good guy, so whether it was loyalty to his bandmates from Strappy and Lad, he felt compelled to continue Strappy and Lad, and I think that was a mistake. The self-titled album they did in 2003 had some good moments on it, and again, it had Gene, so any album with Gene Hoglan on it has to be somewhat good, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like the ones they did after that, which Alien and what the hell was it called? The New Black. He was phoning it in. He admits it. It just sounds like heavy music for heavy music's sake. And I think he should have put Strap Young Lad to bed with City. That's what I would say personally. This is a goddamn masterpiece, and he never touched it.
Fucking heavy.
Yeah,
I think Alien rules, actually.
I know. You know
I
what?
love Alien.
A lot of people do. I know.
I get it. That's a very lackluster album, but I thought Alien was pretty damn good.
And I love the New Black.
And it's solid, right? Yeah,
it just didn't hit me the way this hit
so hard. Yeah,
and it could just be that at the age that I was at, the way this hit me emotionally. It's so hard sometimes to look back at albums, and I mean, who you are at the time you hear an album can make a big impression on.
Huge.
Or a big effect on the impression it has on you. And I was just in that right headspace of like just tipping into adulthood, but still being childlike and, trying to find yourself and driving around at 3 a.m, blasting this, I don't know, but I just don't think I think he should have put it to bed then, instead of forcing it. Because it's funny, some artists do this and they don't make anything good. He was making amazing shit on his own. And I think he probably should have just put it to bed before he did, because his heart wasn't in it and his interviews reflected it. And but anybody out there who has not heard City and you like really heavy stuff,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of people out there who think that the bad mistake for him was to break up Strapping Young Lad.
And that's totally fine. That's
what I was thinking.
It's all opinion, I mean, obviously. But I think even coming from him and reading his book and his interviews, like I think he, I mean, that's where I'm getting this. I'm not just, making it up that his heart was in it, but his heart really wasn't in it. And I don't know. I felt that he could have killed it. But you're right. A lot of people will disagree. That's why this is great. People can comment and call me an asshole.
Yeah, but I think if you look at his career overall, from like the way in the beginning and everything he's done up to recently, I think Strapping Young Lad was kind of an outlier. You got to wonder if that's really ever what he wanted to do. As great as they were, I just don't think that was ever really like his idea of what Devin Townsend was supposed to be.
Oh, I agree with you. Absolutely. He was in some pretty bad headspaces when he made these albums. In fact, one of the greatest things I ever read about him was, especially with the first album, with Heavy Is a Really Heavy Thing, there was a song on here called Happy Camper, Carpe Bum, B-U-M, whatever that is. Happy Camper, he passed out singing it in the studio. He would yell so hard and not take a breath, and that a doctor actually had to tell him that if you got to stop doing this, so you're gonna really hurt yourself. And I thought that was pretty cool in those days, like that this guy was so fucking, but he's so talented, Yeah. It's not like some guy just, screaming and yelling. That's a guy suffering for his art right there. So he was in some bad headspaces when he made those. But
Go ahead and say it, Nick. You just want to say he was so metal. Say it.
He was metal as fuck.
Nick,
I mean, to not breathe when you're singing, that's pretty metal.
Yes.
Nick, I remember when I heard City, the third song on it, I think the song Oh My Fucking God.
Yeah.
When I heard that album, because that came out in 97, I heard it like right away, so I was pretty young. I had no idea how he did that, because there's like a part in that song where he sings for like 60 seconds fast without taking a breath. And I'm like, that's not even human to like talk that often, But I was like, at some point. And now obviously he must have spliced it in the studio or something. But as a kid, I'm like, how the fuck is he doing that? That's not even possible. But
I know I used to try by myself in my room, but wasn't happening. No. Fucking amazing.
All right, Ryan, back to you.
All right, so this next band, from the age of 14 till probably my early 20s, was my favorite band ever on the whole planet. And I was trying to pick an album because I don't like their later stuff as much, where the earlier stuff is, some of the greatest metal ever recorded. I was trying to pick one album where they kind of fucked up, and there's a couple that you could pick, but I realized it wasn't an album where they really went wrong. It's when they changed like their overall way they presented themselves. The band, some of you might have heard of them. The band is Slayer, little thrash band from Los Angeles. And I was thinking, like, I don't know, I didn't really like Diabolison Musica from '98, even though that was mostly Jeff Hanneman. That's his work. And then I didn't really like God Hates Us All from 2001. I'm thinking about like where things went wrong. And to me, it occurred to me like an hour before we started filming this. When Slayer stopped singing about Satan is when Slayer just went off the deep end. So in 1990, they did Seasons in the Abyss, which is a great album. And half the songs on that are kind of like more about war, because they swapped over to war, serial killers, like, that kind of stuff. And by the time they got to 94, Divine Intervention, which is still a good thrash album, they had totally gone that way. They had songs about like, death camps, and they had like religious cults and, genocide and like all kinds of crazy shit that they would go on to sing about. But they had totally like lost where they started, which was like early Show No Mercy, Haunting the Chapel, Hell Awaits, which was like this dark, evil, big spikes, just crazy headbanging fucking mania. Obviously, 80s Slayer shows are legendary for like just the pure chaos. I was a little too young to see that, but I've seen tons of videos of it. And they became kind of like a bigger band, turned to like play more arena shows. Obviously, sold a lot of records as they went on. But once they really swapped over to like stop singing about this stuff entirely. And I know Tom Mariah, he's a Catholic. There's that whole thing. Whatever. That doesn't bother me. You can be one thing and do something else in the band. That doesn't bother me at all. But the band changed a lot, and to me it was kind of like they dovetailed together. They stopped singing about Satan. The music wasn't in as good anymore. And I know Kerry King also took over a lot of the writing later on. Hanneman's like contributions kind of like weren't as plentiful as they were, because like a lot of the most classic Slayer songs like Angel of Death and stuff, that was Hanneman's work. So that's like I think the stuff that kind of like built the backbone of like classic early Slayer. But like there was, everybody talks about sometimes, when you're like a little kid and you sneak into your brother's room or whatever, you hear that album that scares the piss out of you, or you see like you see like, I think Nick said, like you see like the artwork on an Ozzy album that kind of scares the piss out of you. The only album that ever did that when I was like 14 or 15 was Here in Hell Awaits. And this album scared the shit out of me because it sounds like it's recorded. It sounds like it's recorded in hell. It's like cavernous, the reverb, the echo on it. Tom's vocals are just ridiculous. The lyrics are fucking demonic as hell. This scared the shit out of me. It's if it's not my favorite album of all time, it's like top 5. Like now, I just listen to this relentlessly. I've never gotten tired of it. But yeah, when I was a kid, this scared the piss out of me. And they weren't that same band anymore. And I mean, the music I think suffered as well. When bands change, and I'll get all that. And obviously Jeff died, and Lombardo left. Came back, left again. So you have all that interband turmoil, and I get all that. But to me, it was really a thing. Like, what? When they stopped singing about Satan and all that stuff, hokey or not, I thought it was fucking great. It wasn't the same band. It wasn't as good as it used to be. So, and I hate shitting on Slayer because they were the band that got me into metal. They were that totally blew my mind at like that young age. Like, cause I already heard Metallica and like a lot of that stuff, which I like. But when I heard Slayer, I'm like, that was the band that like just like.
Oh yeah, got you psyched.
That first
blew my mind over. So,
He's got a comment.
Oh, I got one.
Yeah.
I think they still sing about Satan. I mean, the whole album. I mean, what God Hates Us All is a satanic song. World Painted Blood. I mean, the album cover is like a bloody Bible. I mean,
it's not the same though.
I mean, they weren't just talking completely about Satan, but they were still a satanic theme. Even Repentless, it was like that.
Yeah,
that whole backdrop, the artwork was like Christ with blood coming off him and everything else.
Yeah, that album sucks. Repentless sucks.
but Steve, you gotta think about it. They were pushing back. They were trying to walk it back and go back to what used to work for them. I mean, that to me, that's what that reeked of.
I still
Ryan
like
saying, like,
I
the
still
first-
like that material. So
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, but they were doing what like Metallica was trying to do with Hardwired and all that shit. They were trying to go back to what worked.
I think they did it much better than
it was
Metallica.
not as genuine. Well, yes, but it was not as genuine. But Ryan, the first moment where Slayer really made that like an imprint, like that they were doing that was that, and I love the song, was Ditto Head, because that was completely like almost like a hardcore punk blast of political screed,
Oh
so, yeah.
They never really like none of the early stuff has anything political at all. And I get that Hanneman had a big background in like hardcore punk and stuff.
Yeah.
And the Undisputed Attitude album, which was all punk covers, that's a cool album. That's a cool little
like
aside. So,
but it was separate.
I get that Jeff's background. That's a cool thing. But yeah, you're right though. Ditto Head was like one of the first times it was like a deliberately like political song. Because I don't recall any of that on those first few albums.
Right. Slayer was another band that hijacked themselves or got hijacked into that whole new metal disaster. because one of the reasons I didn't see Slayer until very recently, it was because I wasn't allowed when they were great. My mom wasn't gonna let me go to fucking concerts, but when I was finally old enough, Slayer was touring with like Korn and Limp Bizkit, and I was like, I'm sorry, it's not happening, because they jumped into that, they embraced all that shit, and so you're right.
You sure you're not talking about Metallica?
What's that?
No, you know
You're
what?
not talking about Metallica, the one that played with Limp Bizkit, wasn't it?
Slayer
Tattoo
played with
the Earth.
Hatebreed a lot. Slayer played with
Slayer
Soulfly.
went out with like all the Ozfests and a lot of that stuff and played with bands like that, with Machine Head. And
played
I
with a
just
lot
don't
of
remember them going really the Limp Bizkit route. I mean,
It was the
Metallica.
Tattoo the Earth tour. I got to look up when that was. Tattoo.
Yeah,
the
I was
Earth.
gonna say. I mean, I saw Slayer 58 times, and I never saw Slayer with Korn or Limp Bizkit unless it was at a festival. They did do that Tattoo the Earth show, which had like Seven Dust and Mudvayne, but it also had Metallica and Sepultura. But it was a festival.
I mean,
They did tour with some questionable bands, but they were all like shitty, small, new metal bands. But yeah, they also toured with Arch Enemy and Hatebreed and lots of other bands. And yeah, I see what you guys pointed. Yeah, nothing is as good as the early days. But the flip side is, we could all say that about all the bands. Nothing as good as the early days. And you're not wrong, 100%.
Yeah.
Overkill.
Yeah, it was Slipknot, Lamb of God, Head P, Mudvayne.
They're trying to stay relevant.
Was
That's
that
a lot
that's
of
what
crap.
everybody was doing at the time.
And I mean, a
That's
lot
all
of it's
crappy
set up by
bands.
record companies too. A lot of.
Oh yeah. But it caused me not to want to go. That's all. Just me.
I'm like Chris. I didn't see them 58 times, but I still saw them all the time, and I still love their performances.
They were still good live, like right up through that. I saw them last in 2014 with they were with Suicidal Tendencies and Exodus, and they were fucking great live.
Excellent. Yeah.
Just I didn't give a shit about the albums after a point.
All right, my next choice. This is kind of a weird one because this band was very, very successful, but I think the bad choice is here. Let me kind of lay it out here. So this band puts out one of the biggest selling debuts of all time in the mid 70s. Sells like 17 million copies, right? They followed up about 2 years, maybe a little less than 2 years later with their second album. Does big business too, not quite as much as the debut, maybe about half, still, 7-8 million copies, nothing to sneeze at, right? Then they take 8 years to come up with their third album. It does pretty good business, right? Sells like 4 million, right? People are still into it, lineup has changed, but still got the name, right? Then they take another 8 years to come up with their fourth album.
Oh my God.
Sounds like John Sykes.
Oh.
Here's the leave button.
I think I know where this is going.
I know where it's going.
So, another 8 years. So 8 years, 8 years, 8 years. Every time it takes them so long to put on another album, people still are buying them, but in way less quantities, right? The lineup continues to change. The one guy at the helm is like the only guy left. The singer kind of comes and goes, right? Then they take like 12 years to put out their next album or whatever it is.
What?
8, and then 12.
They're not dead yet?
By the time the last two albums come out, nobody's buying them. It's almost like, oh, Boston has a new album out. They're
Boston.
still together.
I knew it was Boston.
Right. So my point here is that I love Tom Schultz. I love this band, but 8 years is a long time. And in most cases, people chalk up the 8 years to him being a perfectionist and everything's got to be right. And he's had battles with former bandmates and the record labels, blah, 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 blah. But when you think about it, Boston was huge back in the day. I'm sure Tom never needs to work again. He's probably a multimillionaire a million times over. But these guys could have been the biggest band in the freaking world.
Yeah.
That was the trajectory they were going into. If he would have taken half the time to put out each of these albums, we would have seen Boston albums probably all throughout the 80s. And, we're looking at what? The first album came out, what was it, 77, 76, whatever year it was?
76.
I mean, that was a long time ago. So in all these years, we've got 4 albums that sold pretty well and 2 that nobody gave a shit because, quite frankly, people have forgotten about them. And
Yeah.
the last 2 albums aren't that good either, right? But and then Brad dies and all that kind of stuff. But I guess my point for this whole thing is that sometimes being a perfectionist, John Sykes, I'm talking to you, people will forget about you after a while. We love you, John, but release the damn album already. Don't be the next Boston. Back to
Nice.
It's
Oh, man.
It's not about
Nicely
being a
done.
perfectionist. That's not what that's about. I can tell you that. It's because the record's been done. Is honestly, the Sykes thing, just to so I can shut up. The Sykes thing is about he doesn't think he's relevant. If you can believe that, that's
He's
what
relevant
that-
if you put the damn album out. People have been waiting forever. The people love
He
him.
doesn't think
What are you waiting for?
anyone cares. He doesn't think anyone cares.
We
Anyway.
care.
But the
Butch and I
Boston
care.
thing, you know what though? Obviously the debut is phenomenal and everything, but like you said, all those years in between. But the problem really with that is, like you were saying, they could have been the biggest band and all that stuff. Each record was worse than the one before. It just progressively
Yeah.
just went down. Don't Look Back is a great record. It's not as good as the debut.
Yeah.
And honestly, for me, I only have the first 2. After that, everything else after that got more and more commercial and
Amanda.
yeah, I didn't.
Well, Third Stage is pretty good. You know what it is too? It's like most of
I
the
like
original
that
band is
song.
gone. So it's like,
Of course you do.
you had that great band on those first 2 records, and
Yeah.
that didn't help things either, right?
Yep.
And I think Tom's mindset with songwriting and recording was stuck in that era. And, quite frankly, I love, most of those Boston records. The last 2 are really not that good, but
Yeah.
there's something kind of weird and creepy about like the 3rd and 4th and 5th records. You listen to them and you're like, it's almost like, Tom's living in some weird time machine where he's just trying to channel 1977. And it almost just sounds weird. And then, you've got Brad's vocals on stuff like after he's been dead. And it's just kind of weird, right? So
That's
I don't
pretty
know.
weird.
I don't
The
know. But
creepy
I just
meter.
think that they had that sound. And, if they would have, kind of kept the band together and pumped out an album every 2-3 years, shit, even 4,
I agree.
would have been different. Like I said, he never needs to work again, but it's just kind of weird because obviously the fans are still there. I mean, you go see them whenever, they haven't toured in a while, but the last time I saw them at Bethel Woods, this was packed.
Yeah.
People were into it. They sounded
Yeah,
great.
that was a great show. I had such a good time that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's
But
just-
yeah, they dropped the ball heavy. They needed to pop an album out again, right after, because they owned the world with that first album.
They totally
I
did.
mean, there's another band that comes to mind because I thought about Boston the other night. That's a great choice. And I thought of another band now that you're talking about that did the same goddamn thing with Guns N' Roses. I mean, they put out a great album. They followed up a couple things and then they dropped it for how many years? Got to wait around. And Guns N' Roses is going to come out with a new album. It's a big joke, right?
and they're the biggest ticket draw in the world.
Yeah, you're right.
It took a long time, but it's still working for them.
People still filling football stadiums. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's almost the same. Guns N' Roses almost the same as Boston. They've made a career
Right.
out of
Living
working
off
off
that
that
one record.
debut album, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Crazy.
All right, Sydney, back to you. Well, that way. There we go.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go actually with a topic that Rich mentioned earlier regarding Kiss. And for very similar reasons, obviously, of course, due to the fact that I think that Kiss is just a very greedy band. But
Really?
I mean, I love Kiss. I love Kiss. I love 70s Kiss. I mean, I love bits and pieces of 80s Kiss, whatever, 90s Psycho Circus. I loved the reunion and everything. Yeah, my issue lies with the fact that they have Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer and Peter and Ace's makeup. It really bugs me because I feel like Rich mentioned earlier, it's simply to try to, I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. Like,
It's money.
The brand.
well, yes, but also the fact of like, yeah, I guess it does come down to money. But I mean, like, I look at like Eric Carr. I look at Eric Carr and I look at like, Benny Vincent. And if Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer had their own makeup and their own characters,
Right.
like Eric Carr and like Benny Vincent, I would wholeheartedly accept this lineup of Kiss.
Yeah,
I think
mean,
Eric Singer's
Right.
great. I think Tommy Thayer's great, whatever. It's the fact that they are now filling in, what Peter and Ace built. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair. You know, obviously, diehard music fans like ourselves who go to see Kiss, you know, obviously we know it's not Peter and Ace, but you know, not everybody's a diehard Kiss fan. I know people who are not diehard Kiss fans, and went to go see Kiss because they, you know, had never, you know, they heard the music when they were younger or whatever and hadn't seen them, and they weren't aware of the fact that it wasn't Peter and Ace. And to all of you watching and to us, that seems crazy because we're like, of course it's not Peter and Ace. But to some people, people don't know that, and I think that they're cheating certain fans, and I just don't think that that's necessarily right. I won't go see Kiss because I just, you know, aside from the fact that I think that they've gone a little too long, I personally won't go see them just for that reason, because I think that that's not just not something that I personally support or am happy about. Like I said, if Eric and Tommy had their own shebang, whatever person, you know, it's could have been easy enough to do that. And of course, the reason that they didn't all goes down to
Branding.
But
It's the brand, not the band.
Money makes the world go
Yeah.
round.
And again, goes back to, you know, eventually they've talked about, you know, this is the end of the road tour. Is it really? I don't know. You like to say that. It goes back to the fact that, yeah, eventually Paul and Gene aren't going to do it anymore, and they're going to have somebody else fill in. And this is going to be something that I look at it again as from a fan perspective. It really bugs me when I feel like it's a disservice to the fans, and when it kind of leaves what's passionate about music. That's what really bugs me. Like again with Motley Crue and with Kiss, because to me it's about the music, and it bugs me when I look at these artists and to them it's not anymore. Because as a fan, it's always about the music. So that's my number 2. I won't go on and on about it because I know Rich mentioned it earlier, but that was definitely one that had to make my list.
Cool.
I was a lot like you with them, Sydney, for years, because I mean, this has been going on a long time.
Yeah.
They've been in the band for, I don't know, how many years, Pete? How many years of stay and singer band and Kiss?
20 years almost.
Yeah. So, you know, I was a lot like that. And I finally, they came and they played somewhere around here, and I went and saw them. I really enjoyed myself, and I thought, what am I going to do? There's not much I can do about it. And I still enjoyed seeing Gene and Paul. I mean, yeah. I mean, I even rented the New Year's Eve thing. I obviously got nothing better to do at home other than stream some concerts.
I mean, if you want to see Kiss, I mean, I think it's great, but I mean, I also look at it too as I don't, aside from the fact of Eric and Tommy, it's also the fact of like, I just don't think that Paul has it anymore. I think that they've gone on way too long. They should have, again, that's another band that wasn't quite the same as Motley Crue because they didn't make such a, I don't know, like, huge thing that Motley Crue did about it. Like, of course, they said it was a farewell tour, but I feel like if you had just ended it there, you would have gone out on such a high note. Like, it would have just been, it would have been unmatched. And that again goes back to what I said earlier about these bands don't know when to stop, and especially Kiss. You know, it's
a
just
lot. There's a lot of bands in that category.
No, they do not need the money, and that's another thing. They don't need the money.
They don't need the money.
I mean,
look at without it.
Look at the miracle that the Rolling Stones are still playing live, and actually, I think they still deliver. I saw them at Giant Stadium. I think Pete was there too.
They do. But that's the difference. They still deliver. You know, I know plenty of Kiss fans who have gone to see Kiss and have been walked away disappointed just because they're not that band anymore. But you know,
great point.
Yeah, is what it is, I guess.
Paul Stanley's vocals just aren't the same. He used to be one of my favorite singers. He used to be one of my favorite singers, and he just, you know, with age, he just lost it.
Yeah, it happens.
Yep. All right, Rich, your final pick of the day.
All right, so going with an 80s band. We're on the Sunset Strip. They were visually interesting and shocking like Motley Crue, but a little more shocking, I would say. They used to have raw meat thrown out into the audience. The singer wore costumes with a buzzsaw in it. They had all kinds of stuff on the stage, you know, with the skulls on the amps. The guitars look really cool. The one guitar player had really cool good-looking guitars. But they put out 3 albums in the 90s where they had a rough period. So one was called Still Not Black Enough and Hell Dorado. And then the one in between is really where they shit the bed. It was called Kill, Fuck, Die. So it's Wasp. So in the beginning, Wasp was a band. But then I would say after Crimson Idol, it became like the Blackie Lawless show.
After the first record.
What's that?
After the first record, it became the Blackie Lawless show.
Well, I guess you really couldn't tell, though. I would say after Crimson Idol, it really became evident.
Well, think about the album cover of Of the second
Inside
album.
the Last Command.
Who's on the cover?
Yeah, Inside the Electric Circus too.
Who's on the cover? Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Last Command, Inside the Electric Circus. What else is he on? I don't think anything else after that, right?
I don't. I
No.
was going after Headless Children.
Yeah, but Kill
Not
Fuck
on that.
Die is like an industrial Marilyn Manson album.
Yeah, it's
It
awful.
was just awful. Guitars sounded awful. It was like buzzing and fuzzy. The production was terrible. There was barely any guitar solos. Chris Holmes was on the album, but it was just him and Blackie at that point. That were the original members left. But just not a good album. Like I said, it was just a trio of bad albums. Still Not Black Enough, Kill Fuck Die, and Eldorado. But Kill Fuck Die is the really bad album.
Yeah.
Good choice. Yeah, those albums don't hold up very well at all.
Yeah. Especially following the Crimson Idol, which was just
Good
brilliant.
album. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, even though it is like it's a Blackie solo album, but it's still
It's still a good
the
heavy
band
metal.
members were,
Yeah.
and still the band members were touring with him at the time too, so it wasn't quite like a solo album. But yeah, Kill Fuck Die is the bad misstep there.
Just
In the
give me the debut and give me Headless Children.
Headless Children's incredible too, and I love The Last Command too. Another great album.
That's great. Yeah, I'm not shitting on that. I love that record too.
Yeah.
No,
But yeah, the 90s was a rough period, and then they got a bunch of albums after that too, which were fine. It's okay, but it is like a Blackie solo band now.
sure.
All right, Lynn.
I love Blackie, but that album did suck.
Yeah, it was terrible. It sounds
Lynn loves everything that we pick on today.
Yes.
Pick on it. Lynn's like, I
Not
love that.
defending at all.
Do you like Lynn? Do you like Newer Wasp too?
Not really.
Okay.
They're okay, but I love Blackie, so I'm not going to pick on him.
He's an asshole.
Hey, he
Well,
was
I
nice
heard-
to me at
I
the
heard
club.
in
I don't
I heard
really
the
care.
Chris Holmes documentary talks about
He
that,
was
right?
nice to me at the club. I don't care. He could be an
Well,
asshole to everybody else. As long as he's nice to me, I'm all right with it.
There you go.
I remember.
Chris Holmes is very open about that whole thing. About
Yeah.
Blackie taking over.
Chris Holmes, funny fact, remember that was in Playgirl magazine.
I remember a show at the Gramercy about.
I don't know if you guys ever knew that, but he was.
I must have missed that, I guess.
Missed that one.
There was a show at the Gramercy
My
about,
subscription must have ran out.
about 10 years ago. Boss was playing the Gramercy Theater, and I remember Blackie canceled the whole show because I guess Live Nation scheduled a meet and greet, and he didn't want to do it, so he just boop, out of there. So everybody was really pissed off at him. Then.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that? Yeah.
I didn't go to it, but I remember that
No, I
happening.
didn't go either, but I remember like talking to some of the guys that work at the Gramercy because we were always there back then.
All right, Lynn, what's your next pick?
All right, so my final, I guess, pick would be Journey. I love Journey. I love him, love him, love him, love the early stuff. I love Journey to death. Neil Sean, Steve Smith, like I still listen to their stuff. But for me, when Steve Perry left in '87 to go do his original stuff, I was kind of like, oh, why are you leaving? Like what? Like to me, it felt like he was leaving when the band was on a high note. I don't know, to me. Then he left and he really didn't hit commercial fame, I think, that he wanted, which kind of sucked, although I kind of liked some of his songs. And then they kind of did this reunion thing in '96. You know, they had that album Trial by Fire. Again, wasn't good in my opinion. And they kind of jumped the shark, but I kind of feel bad for him in the fact that he left again because he was fired. You know, he had like hip problems, he had hip surgery. And he said to the guys, listen, I have to decide when I'm going to have hip surgery. And the guy said, hurry up, make a decision. Let's go. We're checking out singers. And I guess he kind of said to them, well, will you reconsider, you know, if I don't have hip surgery? And they're like, nah, we kind of already have someone. So to me, he's like, all right, just don't call it Journey. But I guess that didn't work out well either.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, Journey, because
tour anymore. He just did not want to tour anymore.
Sucks because I really love
Well,
Steve
whatever
Perry.
reason.
They had all those singers after him, and yeah, you know, they sound similar and whatever, but to me, it's just not the same. It's not the
I
same.
love Arnell. I love
So do
Arnell.
I. Yep.
Okay,
They do-
I like him. I don't love him.
He was,
You know.
I've
See,
seen him
somebody I don't
multiple
love.
times. Well, she doesn't like something, but me and Pete saw Santana with the reunion at Madison Square Garden. We had tickets right up front, and I remember seeing Santana and it was so amazing. And we're like, how's Journey gonna go on after them? But Arnell, they just killed it that
They
night.
were amazing.
Yeah.
And Arnell
I
was
don't
such a so enthused. I mean, I like the whole story about him getting in the band too. I think it's a great story. for
Sucks.
him.
But anyway, I have a couple honorable mentions, and that was, well, obviously, Great White, they shit the bed because they had crappy pyrotechnics in 2003, or they really shouldn't.
Yeah, that's a mistake, all right.
They shouldn't have done that at a venue.
Shit the bed in 1984.
I agree with that. Didn't have to wait for that fire.
Let's see. I think Milli Vanilli jumped the shark when everyone found out they were lip syncing. Genesis 1996, Phil Collins leaving. I think that sucked. Blondie, Debbie Harry left in 81 to actually do rap and pop. And I think that was kind of bad on her part, even though she came back to the band in 97. Backstreet Boys, even though I still like them.
God damn it.
Backstreet
What?
Boys.
I like the Backstreet Boys. Stop
How many honorable mentions does she have?
it. And One Direction. That breakup really broke my heart.
Direction. I didn't know this was
The
a
metal show. What's going on here? I came on here for a metal show. I'm disappointed now.
Wait a
I
minute.
know,
Did you
but
say
you know
One
what?
Erection?
I said
One
One Direction. Yes.
One Direction, Nick.
One Direction.
Oh,
Well, no one
Listen,
else.
I have diversified genres in my catalog. What could I tell
I
you?
see.
No one else can have honorable mentions. Lynn just used everybody's.
Okay.
Hold this, please. Thank you.
I've only got one honorable mention.
All right, Steve, what's your final pick of the day?
Well, I'm gonna go with a band we've all heard of, and and of course this is not anything about their commercial success, but it's Metallica.
Oh,
Metallica, I'll even stay along with them for the Black Album. I think that's a great.
We
hard
weren't
rock
supposed to
album.
use Metallica.
Steve
Why
cheated.
are we supposed-
Steve
Why are we
cheated.
supposed to use Metallica?
no, you weren't.
We weren't
Well,
supposed to use Metallica.
you
Should've-
did it,
should've done a
so
reminder.
He already
go
started.
along with it now, Steve.
That's out of the bag now, bro.
Everybody was gonna use that one. Is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was obvious. It was obvious that no one.
Obvious, but some people love them more. I mean,
You're committed,
when they
Steve.
came
Go
out-
along with it.
All right. Do you want me not to? You want me not to go on with it?
No, please.
No, go on with it. You're already committed to it.
All right. I
Same
told
here.
you I was doing it that day, and I don't remember anybody tell. Pete didn't hit me up and say, no, you can't use that one.
He put it on our mass email, our message. Yes.
I don't remember.
That's all right. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead,
All
Steve.
right, so
Steve, you
well,
already
guess
started.
what?
Finish up.
The viewers didn't know about it, so the viewers
I'm
are
crying.
still talking about Metallica. Way better than Slayer. Slayer is still way better than Metallica, but look, I can't even finish it now. I might just go up the air because I can't do it.
Oh,
But,
Steve, just finish up. I want to hear what you got to say.
You're gonna say Load?
1996, I was at a good friend of mine's house playing foosball, and we were so happy that Metallica was on an award show. And they came out with this whole new image. They were wearing like fur coats. They cut their hair. They got a couple of them had bananas in their pockets. And we're like, what the fuck has happened to our freaking thrash metal heroes? You know? And then they come out with Load and Reload. I mean, they've gained their style a little bit with Death Magnetic and stuff coming back, but and the newer stuff, they're like Butch said before, they're trying to get back into the ways of doing things. But I had to have Metallica on the show. I don't care if they said no. There's no one else would have talked about it anyhow because they're not underground enough for Scow and Nick.
I will say that was notable for one thing, especially. Steve said the F word on the show for the first time.
Wow.
Drunk as Jerry.
And it took Metallica to get him to do it. See that?
You're a
Yeah,
real
boys,
New
you
Yorker
know,
now.
I
Nice.
I loved
Nice.
Metallica back in the day. I mean,
We
the
all
whole
did.
thing with the spikes and the metal and everything else. And, oh my God.
I'm
I've got
down.
a few copies of that left on CD if anyone would like to buy it. Rock Fantasy or
I
Rock
have
Fantasy.
to burn them. I don't think anybody wants it.
I don't know, but do you have video of the banana in the pocket thing?
I don't have the video of that, but I remember the whole story about it, but I don't want to go on about that because I'm not supposed to talk about Metallica tonight. So, but when they came out in the whole fur coats and they totally pissed on everything that they'd ever done and they wanted to be like U2. I mean, of course, they had great
Horrifying.
success. They got songs on NASCAR TV and everything now from it.
Yeah.
My honorable mention, I guess I'm going to even wackier. ABBA never got back together. Could have made tons of money.
Yeah.
I'm going to get like Lynn and start talking I'm not gonna talk about boy bands. I'll say ABBA never got back together. That's my favorite.
Yeah,
They could have made millions. Millions.
big bucks.
I would have seen ABBA.
Ugh. All right, Chris Allo, what do you got?
After Steve said that, I just kept thinking the line. Is that a banana in your pants, or you're just glad to see me? But anyway, going back to the 90s, the Great Metal Famine, absolutely, great stuff in the underground. Pantera really was the one band that seemed to buck the trend, but there was another band underneath that really did quite well, and we're under there, and I think they were just about to break, and it's Sepultura. And even though I did not personally like their Roots record, I love all the old stuff. That era, man, they were really doing well, and I think Max splitting with the band because the band didn't want Max's wife Gloria to manage the band anymore. I think that was a huge mistake. I think both parties have never recovered. Soulfly has done like 1 million records. I've heard a couple of them. I really do like the Derek Green Sepultura, but it's the law of diminishing returns. It seems like every time they put out a record, less and less people buy it and less people see the show. So I just think it was a huge mistake splitting that band, because I think if they would have stuck together, especially in '96, that whole rap rock thing just fucking exploded, probably partially because of the Roots record, which again, I don't like the Roots record, but man, that was their time, and they fucked it up for whatever reason. So that's my pick. And my honorable mention, which I'm surprised nobody picked, Billy Squier, Rock Me Tonight video.
Oh.
I mean, holy shit.
Yeah, that's bad.
I mean, Billy Squier, dancing, playing around with a towel, that was a career killer. So, and man, I mean, I remember when I was in, whatever it was, fucking middle school or whatever, like Billy Squier was super cool. But then, yeah, his career did die a pretty quick death, after that.
He's always flailing around like that in those videos.
Yeah. Whoever gave the go ahead to that video, bad move.
Yeah, bad move. Bad production.
Kind of forgot about that guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's like one of the only guys I've still never seen him live. He came around like 2 years ago with the guy from guitar player who used to be in Hall & Oates, and he's in the Saturday Night Live band. I don't remember his name, but I was going to go, and then I found out that they were playing Billy Squier songs, but it was acoustic. I'm like, I don't want to see that. I'm like, that sounds horrible. So I didn't go.
What?
Yeah, I've still never seen Billy Squier.
I saw him once in the 80s.
Okay, yeah.
He opened up with it was Bon Jovi and Skid Row at Giant Stadium.
I remember that, but yeah, I didn't like Bon Jovi or Skid Row, so that was
like Billy Squier either. So I guess you wouldn't have caught me that one.
Yeah.
All right, Butch.
Well, Billy Squier's first 3 solo records are awesome.
They are.
Cool.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hear me, the guitar player,
yeah.
that's the guy. I don't have any honorable mentions because Lynn used everybody, so I can't say any extra ones. But I will say I'm going to do like a twofer kind of. Somebody mentioned Van Halen. I don't remember who said Van Halen. But for me, come on. After 1984, going into 1986, they put out a 5150. So that was it for me. As most people, if you guys have been following, I always call Eddie Van Halen. I always call him Edward, because Edward was the guy that played guitar and was a madman and was the innovator. Eddie was the guy that got complacent and got comfortable and made all the money. So he was fully Eddie by that time. So yeah, so Van Halen in the 5150, I was done. But the big one for me, and I'm sorry, Nick, and I'm sorry you're wearing that shirt too. But they kind of piggyback off of what you were talking about is Iron Maiden. Van Halen and Iron Maiden were my 2 favorite bands in the 80s. And they both made mistakes. So for me, like you had said, Nick, after Seventh Son, that was it. I think I own, what the hell's the name of the album after that?
No Prayer for the Dying.
Yeah, I think I own it. I definitely did. I've never ripped any of the songs. I've never ripped it into my iTunes library or anything. That was it for me. I have seen them since. I have albums since, but nothing. They don't seem, and I know you guys love New Maiden. It does not sound like the same band to me. One of the things that bothers me is that for whatever reason, Steve Harris, who used to write all the songs by himself, started writing with other people, and nothing is even remotely as good as it was when he wrote by himself. I know I can't expect bands in 2020 to sound like they did in 1983, but that is what I want. I know I'm not gonna. I know it's not realistic, but I'm not a fan of where they're going. I hate that they use Kevin Shirley as a producer. He makes them sound like I don't know. They make it sound like a band that has no budget. I hate his production. So Iron Maiden to me is a band that made a huge mistake, and they've tried to go backwards a bit. No Prayer for the Dying, not No Prayer for the, Jesus Christ. Brave New World was a step backwards, and there's a handful of songs on it that I like, but I don't love that record either, and that's probably my favorite record out of all the stuff that they've done since Seventh Son. So I'm not a huge Maiden fan of new recorded material. Obviously, live they're phenomenal and everything. And Yannick has to go. We all know Yannick has to go. So you can agree with me or disagree with me in the comments, but you're wrong. Yannick has to go.
That's true.
So that's it. So Maiden for me.
All righty then, Nick.
All right. Well, that could be its own show, and that would be a good. Exactly. There's a lot to unpack there. Yep. I was going to go with. I was going to say Sepultura. Aloe. Totally agree with you. The disease of Ross Robinson and that whole new metal, rap metal, corn. Yeah. But I was torn between that and what I'm going to go with actually, and I swear to God, I thought of this as we were doing the show. I realized something I can't believe I didn't think of till now. I feel personally very ripped off at the fact that I never got to see Pink Floyd as Pink Floyd. I've seen Roger. I actually haven't seen David Gilmour live by himself. I just wish, I think they made it. I think if David Gilmour and Roger Waters could have ironed out their feud, and I know this is probably as tired of an argument or whatever people talk about all the time, but I usually talk about like demonic goat moon by this point of the show, so I didn't do that this week. But no, for me personally, like I would have fucking loved to seen Pink Floyd as Pink Floyd, and I mean, these guys, I know Roger's super political and David didn't want to be political, and I know, Roger was guilty about Sid and all that shit, and I think we did to Wright wasn't fair. But I just wish they could have fucking patched it up. How much money, how much success could you imagine if those two got
all
back
the money?
All of the money. A lot of money.
Think of how much money they've been offered.
Yeah.
Right. And I know and listen, maybe I have respect for them if they don't want to do it for the right reasons. It's my kid, sorry. Maybe maybe I'm getting stared at. Maybe I don't know. But I think I respect if they don't want to do it because their heart's not in it. I do respect that. But man, I just as an experience for me, I wish they would have patched it up and played.
I'll tell you what, Nick, Led Zeppelin played that one show. Cream played a little bit, and even the Police. They all did like a little, not extended reunions, but they all got back together and did the thing. And
actually, that police reunion was pretty big, though.
Yeah, I mean, even the Zeppelin show at I think 02 in London, like that was a cool show. That was.
You could just do like one off, you know what I mean? Like something like that.
One-off would be
not
cool.
A whole tour or anything, where it's this big commitment or something. But if you could just do like
maybe less,
just one or two, 2 nights that like Led Zeppelin did,
do it, record it, and then sell it.
They don't need the money.
No, they definitely don't.
No, I know that's true.
It probably won't ever happen.
It's almost like doing a disservice to you know.
Yeah, because if they did it now, they would be doing it for money, maybe even if they give it to charity. But because, like you said, their heart's not in it. So if they did it, they'd be doing it
It
for.
wouldn't be genuine. Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I wish they could have just patched it
Wish
up.
it could be genuine. Yeah.
Look what they made. Look at the music they made together. Jesus Christmas.
Right.
I'm not even a big Pink Floyd fan, but I get what you're saying, and
Yeah.
it's important to music for sure.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to see them in '94 with the.
Me too.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
only time.
I should have found my way into that. I was right on the cusp of me being, I blame my brother. He should have taken me.
Blame someone,
Took me
right?
to Rush though. He took me to see Rush.
Hey,
That's good. All right, Ryan, your last pick of the day.
All right, so Nick decided to not pick any demonic goat bands this week, but I'll take one for you, Nick. So there was a death metal band from Sweden. You know, I love Swedish death metal. One of my favorite Swedish death metal bands. They only ever put out one album. They recorded it in 2002, and then it actually broke up a few years later. They put it out posthumously in 2005 or 6, and it's called, the band was Repugnant, and the album is called Epitome of Darkness. And then they broke up. They actually reunited. They played like one show. They played Maryland Death Fest in Baltimore, which I went to, and it was great. And, they could have kept going, and this is a pure selfish thing, because financially, this was the opposite of a bad decision. This was a brilliant decision. But for me, I don't give a fuck about that because it doesn't my money. For me, it was a bad decision. So the singer for this band, Repugnant, formed another band called Ghost. And Ghost became a phenomenon. You know, I had to suffer to them twice during Iron Maiden. I've argued with Steve about this.
Don't roast Ghost. Come on.
I don't like the band at all. I think they suck. It's like weird Tim Burton, Johnny Depp kind of stuff bouncing around, Scooby Doo. I can't stand them at all. And it kind of chaps my ass because this is like such a good, awesome Swedish death metal album. He doesn't need to sound anything alike. So he's a versatile singer. You know, we can do clean vocals. Nothing wrong with his clean vocals in Ghost. He's not a bad vocalist. And on this, he obviously does death metal vocals. But the fact that he's been asked since, would you ever get that band back together? But why? He's got a moneymaker on his hands now, and it's his vessel. He does whatever he wants with Ghost. I guess he fired all the other band members at some point. That's his business, whatever. I don't care about that. But so it's his ship. He steers it. He does what he wants, makes tons of money. Good for Tobias, Papa, whatever he calls himself now. He was called Mary Bell when he did this album. So he's had some strange names. But I don't give a fuck about any of that. Ghost can go die in a fire. I don't care. I know Steve loves me. Steve, I don't think you've even ever heard that. Steve, have you ever heard this album?
I
If you heard this album, you would like this album more than
check it out. I definitely will. But
it's a good album. So.
I got no problems with Ghost. I mean, they got goofy, but the first couple albums are really good.
Yeah, they're really good. They're not really good. I think.
You liked them at first till your friends found out you did.
Well, I actually saw them when they played Maryland Death Fest, like their first U.S. show. And before anybody, like, oh, it's the singer from Repugnant. He's got this new band. They're playing Maryland Death Fest. Nobody knew who they were yet. So I think I watched about 3 songs. I'm like, yep, I'll be outside getting a beer, hanging out on the sidewalk. And that was my 15 minutes of interest in Ghost. So I don't care about that. I just want this band back because they're awesome. Obviously, they're never going to come back. So that's my third choice. My very selfish underground pick.
There you go.
Ghost, going to Repugnant.
It wouldn't be an episode of the Squares without an underground pick from somebody.
That's right.
There you go. Gotcha.
Right. Well, my third choice is not underground at all. I'm going to go back to 1983. So there was this upper Midwest band called Styx. All right. Sold lots of records, right? Really big band, stadium band, right? Grand Illusion, Pieces of Eight, Cornerstone, Paradise Theater, all these big albums. But, their singer and keyboard player with Paradise Theater started to really enjoy doing these kind of like rock opera-ish theatrical things, right? And decides to come up with this story for a concept album called Kilroy Was Here. All right. Which, made a lot of money, right? Sold a lot of records, a couple hit singles, right? All this, half of it's ballads or kind of real goofy kind of rock songs. And then the songs that are really good on the album are the ones written by, the cool guys in the band, Tommy Shaw and James Young, right? And I'm not knocking Dennis DeYoung because I dig Dennis DeYoung, but I just think that he was in a weird space at this time, and he really wanted to take over this band and kind of have them play the music that was really, doing it for him at the time, which was not hard rock mixed with kind of like prog rock, what we normally, heard from Styx. He was into doing this like vaudevillian, theatrical Broadway type stuff, and the rest of the band was not into it. So, they released the album anyway. Like I said, it did really well, but then they planned this big tour, which was a total disaster. It caused lots of friction in the band. They wound up breaking up for a number of years. Tommy Shaw was like, at the end of that tour, Tommy Shaw was like, get me the hell out of here. I'm going to go do a solo career. I'm not going to do this anymore. The band wound up breaking up. They got back together in the early 90s. They tried to make it work again, but all of a sudden the same old shit keeps happening again. Dennis wants to do all these ballads. And eventually, he kind of left, came back. And by the end of the 90s, they did that big reunion, they did the big tour and made a lot of money. They went and did that album, the reunion album. And again, more of the same. And the guys were like, you know what, we got to get this guy out of here if we're going to continue with Styx. So they basically did that. They've never gotten back together ever since. They've actually released a couple albums without him that have been really good, closer to the Styx of old. But basically that album kind of like killed their career for a number of years, not only just out in the market, but in the eyes of the fans themselves, because people just wouldn't take them seriously anymore after that. So yeah, Kilroy Was Here from Styx is my final choice. I do have a couple honorable mentions here. Michael Schenker leaving UFO at the end of the 70s. I mean, we had some really good albums when Tonka joined.
Yeah.
I agree. And of course we had those great Michael Schenker group albums, the first couple, but just imagine if they stayed together and continued putting out albums after Lights Out, the live album, Obsession. Could they have been one of the biggest bands in the world? Maybe. Who knows?
But would the UFO have been better carrying on than those 3 records from Schenker?
Tough to know.
Who knows?
You know what I mean? I don't know.
Same thing with Ronnie James Dio that we
Who
talked about.
knows?
You lose one thing, you get another.
Yeah.
All the attack is so good, but
It's just tough. It's funny because, like I said, they went their separate ways. Both did very well on their own, but not mega. And you just have to wonder, after that run of Schenker albums, if they would have kept it going, what could have happened? I don't know. That's like a what if type of thing. And my other one too is Alcatraz. What if they stayed in that band?
Yeah,
100%.
a big one.
I mean,
100%.
that first album is
It is a
so
big one.
great. And I like the second album with Vi, and I obviously loved those first handful of Yngwie albums, right? But it's like, what if they would have kept that thing going for a couple of years, right? And I'm not even going to talk about that 1995 Fleetwood Mac album Time with Dave Mason and the whole cast of all these other people that nobody knows, nobody cares about. Stevie and Lindsay leave and they decide to put together this international Fleetwood Mac that's even weirder than the previous version, and it just, nobody buys it, nobody cares, and it's like almost like forgotten in rock history. So back to Sydney to finish us all off here.
All right, so my last pick is more of a kind of like hypothetical, like what if this happened type of thing. The decision that this artist made, or this band made at the time, it's a very it's a band that everybody knows that I love, so it'll reveal it in a minute. But this decision was very good for the artist, and for the fans, very good for the fans, but bad in general for the band. So I'm going with Alice Cooper in the mid-70s when he ended up going solo. And I'm going to tell you why. So essentially during that time period, they made, of course, $1 Billion Babies in 73. They were at the top of their game, peak Alice Cooper. Bob Ezrin decided to, basically Alice was the character. He was a persona. He had approached him about doing possibly a solo record with Alice, and Alice declined. Bob Ezrin ended up bowing out for Muscle of Love, which was 74's record. And a lot of Alice fans agree. I mean, there are some really good songs on that record, but to me, it's a lackluster Alice Cooper record. They kind of lost the magic of having Bob Ezrin produce them. And I don't know, it's not a standout record for me. It's kind of just there in the catalog. So at that point in time, the record didn't do well, and the band at that time, Dennis Dunaway, oh my God, Glenn Buxton, Michael Bruce, Neil Smith, were kind of feeling a little bit of resentment towards Alice. He was the big name, he was a persona, whatever. So they basically threatened that they were going to do solo albums. And Alice was like, hey man, if you do solo albums, I'm gonna do a solo album. And so that's what they did. And you tell me which one you know more,
Right.
Alice's solo career or any of the you know, records that they did afterwards. I know that they did, I don't know if they actually ended up going on and doing solo records, the rest of the band, but I know that they did come together and do one record either in the late 70s or early 80s. And I'm a big
Yeah,
Alice
it was right after $1 Billion
yeah,
Baby.
yeah, it was like right
Yeah.
after.
It's not
And
terrible, actually. It's not terrible.
it's not bad, but it's, you know, obviously
It's
nowhere
missing
near,
something. And we
it's
know what
nowhere
that is.
near, you know, Alice's success. So great for the fans. I mean, my favorite Alice Cooper record is a solo Alice record, but you know, it makes me wonder again, kind of similarly to what we've talked about a little bit before, of what it would have been like if they did stay together. You know, it was a really bad move for the rest of those guys, you know, the Alice Cooper band. I mean, a lot of them after that, they did that record. Dennis Dunaway's done a couple things in the last couple of years, but you know, Neil Smith went on to be a realtor, and you know,
Oh,
Mike
that's funny.
Bruce does some stuff, you know, but I mean, that was a poor decision for them. You know, they kind of bowed out, and Alice went on to become, you know, we think of Alice Cooper a lot of the time. People don't think about the Alice Cooper group; they think about Alice. So good move for the fans, bad move for the bands. I don't really have a lot of honorable mentions. I don't have any. We kind of nailed it all tonight, but yeah, that's gonna be my number one. And I'm gonna say it because you just mentioned UFO. I'm gonna have Michael Schenker on my podcast this week.
Yes.
So
Nice.
Nice.
look out for that episode. And again, I'm gonna do another shameless plug for my Jolyn Turner interview. If you look at Metal
Cool.
from the Inside and Jolyn Turner, you can watch it. But yeah, I wanted to mention Michael Schenker because it was a fun conversation. So stay tuned for that if you
Awesome.
love UFO. So.
I have a quick comment on your Alice Cooper pick. So
Yeah.
I think we all forget how big that original Alice Cooper group was.
Yeah.
Huge.
They were
Huge.
huge. They were
Mhm.
huge, and they had that stable lineup. And I think if they would have kind of kept that going, I mean, Glenn Buxton was a complete mess at the time, and I think that
Right.
was always going to get derailed because of that. But I mean, they were really, really big, and as big as Alice was on his own, I mean, that was a band, and they were a formidable band and a really big band. Those albums sold a lot of copies.
They didn't want
Yeah.
to, another thing is they didn't want to do a lot of they were doing the theatrics, and of course that was a big thing, but he wanted to venture into, you know, you look at Welcome to My Nightmare, and then he went into like dancers and different things, and he was doing a lot of stuff that they were like, no, you know, Bob Ezrin was kind of having a little bit of influence in his management, and you know, they were like, no, we don't want dancers, like, you know, we want to chop your head off and, you know, do the whole thing. And you know, it's, again, you look at it and it's like, you know, I think they always knew that they went into it thinking that, you know, Alice Cooper obviously had to be one person. You know, you can't have a group of people named Alice Cooper. But I don't think that they realized really how that would affect the group as time went on. You know, it sounded feasible. You know, oh yeah, you can be Alice and it's no big deal. And like, everybody will know who we are. And, you know, we won't feel any like resentment towards the fact that everybody knows who you are. And I think that it kind of caught up with them when they didn't, you know, realize that would happen. So
It did, yeah. Not in the original plans, unfortunately.
no, not at all.
Cool. So there you have it, everybody watching. So lots of interesting picks here, some good conversation tonight. So feel free to post some of what you think are really bad decisions that some of your favorite bands or artists have done over the years, and I'll put them in the comments below. I want to thank Rich Catino for joining us here tonight. Good having you on the show, Rich. And
Woo.
absolutely. And since we do this every week, our center square is Mr. Jones. I would like him to give us some final thoughts before we leave you all today.
Go Oilers, go.
Woohoo. For all you hockey fans, in case
Go
somebody.
Bucks.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And we'll see you all next week. Make sure you visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Rich, you want to give a quick plug to some of the other outlets you write for?
Sure. Metal Asylum, Brave Words, and the Metal Hall of Fame.
Cool.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody. Make sure you check out
Thanks.
Sydney's podcast as well. And we got Michael Schenker coming up, which is really good. And we'll see you all next week for Rich and Lynn and Steve and Chris and Butch and Nick and Ryan and Sydney and Lindsay too. I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you guys all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.